Tammy Day set Mia's suitcase on the front step and went back for the cardboard box. She didn't throw anything. That would have been easier to understand. She carried Mia's clothes out in neat loads, placed them beside the blue hydrangea, and kept the screen door from slamming behind her. At 23, Mia stood in the gravel drive of her grandfather's house in Lewis and watched her mother remove her from it. Dylan stayed inside. He was visible through the dining room window, one hand resting on the polished table Gregory White had used for holiday meals. A folder lay open beside him. The release form was still on top, waiting for Mia's signature. Tammy came out with the box and set it down harder than the suitcase. "You can take the bedding from upstairs," she said. "The gray set, not the white one. I'm not signing it. I heard you the first 3 times. Then why are you still putting me out?" Tammy looked toward the house before answering. It belonged to her now, along with most of the furniture inside. That fact still felt new enough that she checked it without thinking. "Because I'm 50 years old," she said. "I've spent my entire life cleaning up after people who refuse to be practical. Your grandfather was one. You're becoming another. The property was left to me. The property is a wreck. It's still mine. And Dylan has a buyer willing to take it off your hands?" Mia looked through the window. Her half-brother saw her looking and turned away. The meeting that morning had lasted less than an hour. Gregory's savings had already been divided according to the recorded probate distribution. Tammy received the comfortable house on New Road and most of the liquid estate. Dylan, who was 27, received money, Gregory's newer truck, and several investment accounts that Tammy described as a proper start. Mia received the white Orchid house. Even the clerk handling the papers had paused at that part. The old commercial glass house stood farther down New Road on a separate parcel behind a weathered cedar fence. A small potting cottage was attached to its eastern wall. Gregory had run his orchid business there for decades, but the place had been closed since storms damaged the roof. Several glass panels were missing. The heating system hadn't been tested in years. Vines covered half the service entrance. The distribution gave Mia the property, the orchid house, the cottage, and all fixtures and contents located there. Tammy had leaned toward Dylan and whispered, "Demolition burden." She hadn't whispered quietly. Dylan already had a plan for the neighboring parcels. A developer wanted enough connected land for a row of expensive rental homes. Gregory's former nursery interrupted the shape of the proposed site. Dylan stood to receive a commission if he assembled the parcels, and Mia's signature would allow him to include hers. He'd slid the release across the table after the clerk left. "You'd walk away clean," he told her. "No taxes, no repairs, no hauling broken glass. They'll cover demolition. How much would I get?" "We're still working that out." "That means you know what you'd get." Dylan tapped the paper with one finger. "Don't make this personal." It had become personal before he finished the sentence. Now Mia stood outside with everything Tammy had decided she could keep. Tammy folded her arms. "You chose the Orchid house. I didn't choose this. You refused to help your brother close the deal. He asked me to release my property without telling me what it was worth. It's worth whatever someone pays to remove it." Mia bent and lifted the cardboard box. The bottom sagged. Her grandfather's old green sweatshirt sat on top of 2 coffee mugs, her phone charger, and a stack of mail Tammy had taken from the hall table. "You said I could stay until I found an apartment. That was before you decided to block the sale. Mom?" Tammy's mouth tightened. She wanted Mia to sign, but she also wanted to believe the signature would protect her daughter. The two wants had grown together until Tammy could no longer separate care from control. "You own a cottage now," she said. "Go stay there. You know it's not fit to live in. Then sign the paper." Mia looked at her mother for several seconds. Tammy held her ground, though she felt the first pinch of shame when Mia stopped arguing. Mia placed the box in the back seat of her small hatchback. She put the suitcase beside it and returned for the bedding. Dylan met her in the upstairs hall. "You're making this bigger than it is," he said. Mia pulled the gray sheets from the linen closet. "You stayed behind the window. I was giving you space. You were waiting for her to do it." Dylan shoved his hands into his pockets. Gregory's truck key was in the right one. He'd been touching it all morning. "The developer won't wait forever," he said. "There's a timeline. So, tell me your commission." "That's not the point. It's the only number you won't say." He lowered his voice. "I have obligations." Mia knew about some of them. There had been a car loan, 2 credit cards, and a business idea involving vacation rentals that disappeared after 3 months. She didn't know the total. Dylan never used the word debt around Tammy. He called it cash pressure, as though it were weather. "I'm not signing today," Mia said. "Fine. Go look at the place. You'll call me by tomorrow." He stepped aside to let her pass, already certain that broken glass and wet plaster would finish the argument for him. Mia carried the sheets downstairs. Tammy stood at the kitchen counter with her back turned. The brass key to the Orchid house lay beside the fruit bowl. It had an old white plastic tag attached with wire. Gregory had written "East Door" in faded black marker. Mia picked it up. Under it lay her copy of the recorded distribution. She folded the pages once and slid them into her bag. Tammy spoke without turning. "There's no electricity down there. I'll manage. The cottage roof leaks. I heard you. I'm trying to keep you from ruining your savings." Mia waited, but Tammy didn't face her. "You could have tried that before putting my suitcase outside." She left through the kitchen door. The drive to the Orchid house took less than 3 minutes. Mia could have walked it, but the car held nearly everything she owned. The cedar gate leaned inward and scraped the weeds when she pushed it. Beyond it, the property looked worse than it had from the road. The main Orchid house was a long glass structure set on a low brick wall. Storm debris covered the gravel path. One roof vent hung crooked, and several panes had been replaced years ago with cloudy plastic. The western bay had a section of glass missing wide enough for rain to enter freely. The attached cottage had once been painted cream. It had faded to the color of old paper. A narrow chimney rose from one end. The gutter above the door sagged in the middle, full of leaves and black water. Mia remained beside the car with the key in her hand. She had visited the property often when Gregory was working. Back then the glass had stayed warm through winter, and the air inside smelled of damp bark, fertilizer, and the coffee he forgot on his bench. He'd kept a radio near the sink. Mia never remembered him changing the station. Weather reports, old songs, and baseball games simply passed through the leaves. The last time she'd entered the greenhouse with him, he'd been irritated by a failing misting valve. She'd held a flashlight while he took it apart. "People replace whole systems because one small thing sticks," he'd said. "First you find the stuck thing." At the time, Mia thought he was only talking about the valve. She unlocked the cottage. The door opened 6 inches and stopped against something. Mia pushed harder. A swollen cardboard carton dragged across the floor until there was room for her to squeeze inside. The smell came first: wet wood, old soil, and mouse droppings. She found a switch and tried it. Nothing happened. Light entered through one dirty window above the sink. The cottage had 2 rooms. The front room contained a potting counter, a rusted stove, and shelves filled with empty clay pots. The back room held a narrow bed frame without a mattress, a small bathroom, and a ceiling stain the size of a dining table. A metal bucket stood beneath the darkest part of the stain. It was full. Mia set her bag on the counter and checked her phone. Tammy had sent no message. Dylan had sent one. "The offer may change after Friday. Don't wait too long." She turned the phone face down. Outside, a sheet of orange paper had been fastened to the greenhouse service door. She hadn't noticed it from the drive because a loose vine covered half of it. Notice of unsafe conditions appeared across the top. The inspection date was 4 days earlier. The listed problems included unsecured glazing, roof damage, blocked access, faulty electrical service, and possible hazards from falling materials. The owner had 45 days to stabilize the structure and request another inspection. Mia read the page twice. The deadline wasn't a demand to restore everything. It required the dangerous sections to be secured, the access routes cleared, and the electrical system kept off until it could be checked. Even so, 45 days felt very short when she had 1 pair of work gloves in the car and less than $20,000 saved from 3 years of office work and weekend shifts. A gust moved through the broken western bay. Loose glass clicked high above her. Mia stepped back. She could sign Dylan's paper. That was the clean answer. She could call him before sunset, sleep in a hotel, and start looking for a room to rent. Instead, she walked around to the east door. The brass key stuck halfway into the lock. She wiped it on Gregory's sweatshirt and tried again. The lock turned. The greenhouse door opened with a long scrape against the concrete. Inside, the center aisle was almost hidden beneath fallen leaves, broken trays, and lengths of irrigation hose. Rotted wooden benches filled both sides. Some had collapsed under empty pots. Others leaned toward the aisle like tired shelves. Mia took 3 careful steps. Rainwater had collected across the western side, but the eastern floor remained mostly dry. The brick base looked solid. So did several roof supports. She didn't know enough to call the structure safe, but it wasn't flat on the ground, and that mattered. She moved farther down the aisle. Near the center stood a wide hardwood bench unlike the others. Its surface was stained but level. The legs disappeared into a rectangular masonry base. 4 thick bolts held metal plates along the lower frame. Mia put both hands on the edge and pushed. It didn't move. Every other bench Gregory used had been built to shift. She remembered helping him drag them aside when he cleaned the drains. This one seemed fixed into the building itself. She crouched and saw newer mortar between older bricks. A line of dry dust clung to one seam, despite the damp floor nearby. When she placed her fingers against it, she felt a faint current of cool, dry air. Mia leaned closer. Something inside the bench base gave a soft metallic tick, then went still. A sharp crack sounded overhead. She stood quickly and moved back into the aisle. A loose triangle of glass dropped from the western roof, struck a bench, and broke into 3 pieces. That settled what had to happen first. Mia returned to the cottage, found an old push broom behind the door, and began clearing the entrance. The broom had lost half its bristles, but it moved the leaves. Beneath them, she uncovered a grated drain clogged with roots and packed soil. She knelt, pulled the roots free, and used a broken pot to scoop away the mud. Water that had been sitting across the threshold trembled, turned in a slow circle, and disappeared through the grate. It was a small thing. The door opened all the way now. Mia carried her suitcase inside before the next rain started. Then she photographed the orange notice, the broken roof, the central bench, and each side of the cottage. She made a list on the back of Dylan's unsigned release. Secure glass, clear paths, roof inspection, electrician, dry place to sleep. At the bottom, she added one more line. Find out why the bench is bolted down. The light was fading when she noticed a business card pinned beside Gregory's old wall telephone. The corners had curled, and soil marked one edge. Reeves Nursery Repair. Noah Reeves. Greenhouse frames, glazing, pumps, and heating systems. Mia remembered him as the tall young man who used to arrive before sunrise and argue with Gregory about tools. She hadn't seen him since the funeral. Gregory had once said Noah could hear a bad motor bearing before anyone else heard the motor. She dialed the number. He answered on the 4th ring. Machinery hummed behind him. Reeves Nursery Repair. Noah, it's Mia White. The machinery stopped. Mia, I'm at my grandfather's orchid house. There was a pause. What are you doing there this late? Trying not to lose it. She sent him the photograph of the notice. He looked at it while she waited in the darkening cottage. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Don't walk under the western roof, he said. Don't touch the electrical panel. I'll be there at 7 tomorrow morning. I can't afford a full repair crew. I didn't say I was bringing one. What are you bringing? My ladder, a glazing rack, and coffee. We'll argue about the rest when I see how bad it is. Mia looked through the cottage doorway. Beyond the weeds and wet glass, the central bench sat in the dim aisle exactly where Gregory had fixed it. She found a tarp on the top shelf, spread it over the old bed frame, and laid the gray sheets on top. Then she set an alarm for 6 and placed the brass east door key beneath her phone. The alarm sounded while rain tapped the metal gutter above her head. Mia sat up too quickly and struck her shoulder against the wall. The tarp had slipped during the night. One corner of the gray sheet was damp, and her sweatshirt smelled like the cottage. For several seconds, she didn't know where the bathroom was. Then she saw the full bucket beneath the ceiling stain and remembered. She washed at the little sink using water from a bottle. The faucet coughed when she turned it, but nothing came out. She dressed in yesterday's jeans, tied her hair back, and carried the bucket outside. The rain had stopped. Low clouds hung above the greenhouse, making every unbroken pane look gray. Noah's truck arrived at 6 minutes before 7. It was white with a steel rack over the bed and dried mud around the wheels. He parked near the gate, climbed out with 2 paper cups, and looked at the property without saying anything. He was 31 now. Mia remembered him as lanky and impatient. He'd filled out since then, though he still moved as if standing still wasted time. His brown work jacket had a repaired tear at one elbow. A tape measure hung from his belt. He handed her a cup. You slept here? It wasn't a question. How can you tell? You've got potting soil on your face. Mia wiped the wrong cheek. The other side. She wiped again. Noah nodded. Better? The coffee was hot and sweeter than she usually took it. She held the cup with both hands. Noah walked to the orange notice and read every line. Then he photographed it with his phone. Who inspected? The name's at the bottom. I know him. He doesn't scare people for fun. That's comforting. It should be. It means the list is probably the list. He opened the service door but didn't enter. He studied the roof from the threshold, then walked around the outside twice. Mia followed while he pointed out damaged glazing bars, a twisted vent arm, and a section of gutter that had pulled away from the frame. How bad? She asked. I haven't looked at the heating pipes or the foundation. How bad from what you can see? Bad enough to cost money, not bad enough to demolish. She let out a breath. Noah heard it. You thought I'd tell you to sign Dylan's paper. I thought you might. I haven't seen his paper. He wants the land included in a development deal. That sounds like Dylan. You don't even know him. I've met him. When? Here. Years ago. He wanted your grandfather to clear some nursery equipment so he could use the drive for a party. Mia had forgotten the party. She remembered carrying folding chairs from Tammy's garage and returning the next morning to collect bottles from the lawn. She'd also written the invitations because Dylan said she had neater taste. He was younger, she said. So were we. Noah went back to his truck for a hard hat. He gave Mia a second one and adjusted the plastic band when it slipped over her eyes. Stay where I can see you. I know how to walk through a greenhouse. This one drops pieces. He entered first. They moved down the center aisle. Noah tested the floor with the heel of his boot and looked up more often than forward. Near the western bay, he stopped and marked a safe boundary with bright tape. No farther than this until I brace that vent. Mia pointed toward the central bench. That's the one I told you about. He walked around it. The bench top was made from narrow hardwood slats set over a thick frame. Unlike the rotted benches around it, the central one had no soft corners. Noah pressed a screwdriver into the wood and found only surface wear. Your grandfather didn't build all of this at the same time, he said. I know. The side benches were here first. This base is newer. Mia crouched beside him. There's air coming through. Noah held the back of his hand near the mortar seam. His expression changed, but only slightly. You feel it? Yes. What does it mean? It means there's a dry space behind that seam, or a pipe chase, or both. He examined the 4 bolts. Can we open it? Not today. You said you'd look. I'm looking. You're looking like you already know something. I know those bolts are carrying weight. I don't know what moves if we take them out. The bench? Maybe. Maybe part of the bracing. Gregory changed things when he needed them changed. Annie didn't always leave drawings. Mia ran her fingers over one of the metal plates. Noah stood. The deadline matters first. That was what Gregory would have said. Find the stuck thing, but don't pull apart the whole machine to satisfy yourself. Noah spent the next hour measuring the frame, while Mia cleared broken pots from the east aisle. He called out numbers, and she wrote them on the back of an envelope. Twice, she asked whether they should contact Tammy before removing old equipment. Why, he asked the second time. Some of it might have belonged to Grandpa's estate. This is his nursery equipment. Yes. And you own the nursery and its contents. Mia looked down at the distribution papers she'd placed under a clean pot. I know what it says. Do you? She didn't answer. Noah lifted a rusted rolling cart. One wheel had seized, so Mia took the other end. Together, they carried it outside. Her phone rang as they set it down. Tammy's name appeared on the screen. Mia stepped away from Noah before answering. She did that automatically, as if family conversations required privacy, even when the family had already made its decisions. Hello? Where's the folder from the hall desk? Tammy asked. What folder? The blue one with the house bills? I don't know. You organized them after the funeral. I put them in the bottom drawer of Grandpa's desk. I looked there. Did you look under the insurance envelopes? There was a pause while Tammy crossed the dining room. Mia could hear drawers opening. Found it, Tammy said. You put the electric account password somewhere? It's written inside the folder. Which page? The yellow note. Another pause. Noah climbed onto his truck rack and began releasing a ladder strap. He wasn't trying to listen, but he could hear enough to understand that Mia still knew how everything worked inside the house, where she no longer lived. Tammy found the note. All right, Dylan wants to know if you read the developer's release. Yes? And I'm not signing it today. You spent one night in that place. Don't turn stubbornness into a plan. I'm working on the code list. With whom? Noah Reeves is here. Tammy knew the name. Gregory had talked about Noah often, usually when comparing him favorably to someone who had disappointed him. What's he charging? We haven't discussed that. Then discuss it before he touches anything. Mia looked toward Noah. He had lowered the ladder and was waiting for her to finish. I need to go. Mia, listen to me. You tend to help first and ask questions afterward. People take advantage of that. The unfairness of it was so clean that Mia almost laughed. I'll remember, she said. Tammy missed the meaning. Good. Call me tonight. The line went quiet. Mia kept the phone at her ear for another second. Noah rested one hand on the ladder. Everything all right? She found the folder. That wasn't what I asked? It's what she called about. Mia put the phone in her pocket and returned to the greenhouse. They worked without talking for several minutes. Noah secured the loose vent with a temporary brace. Mia held the ladder and passed tools up to him. She knew the names of most of them because Gregory had taught her, though she still said the narrow silver one when she couldn't remember a particular wrench. Noah came down and tested the brace. Your mother's partly right, he said. Mia stared at him. About discussing the price. I thought you weren't listening. I wasn't. New Road is quiet. He removed his gloves. I can give you an assessment today. Anything beyond that needs an agreement. I have savings. How much of it can you use? Enough. That's not a number. Why do you care? Because there's no point saving the greenhouse if you can't buy groceries afterward. Mia took the folded notice from her pocket. I have 44 days now. Yes. And if I don't stabilize it, they can bar access. If conditions get worse, they can order more work. The longer you wait, the fewer choices you'll have. So, what's the minimum? Noah looked over the structure again. Safe glazing, roof bracing, clear exits. Electrical inspection, probably drainage work. I need to test the frame before I give you a figure. Could it be done? In 44 days? Yes. If materials arrive, if the foundation is sound, if you make decisions when they're needed. Mia heard the last part clearly. I can make decisions. Noah glanced at the old cart they'd carried outside after she asked whether Tammy should be consulted. You can, he said. I'm not sure you're used to it. The words stayed between them. He didn't soften them, and she didn't pretend they hadn't landed. At the family house, Mia had been the person who handled what was left. She made appointments when Tammy got frustrated with recorded phone menus. She reviewed Dylan's emails before he sent them. During Gregory's final months, she brought groceries to New Road, collected prescriptions, and changed the sheets when he was too tired to stand. She hadn't thought of those things as payment. Still, somewhere along the way, she'd begun treating usefulness as proof that she belonged there. Tammy had encouraged her to save for a better apartment instead of renting a room. There was always some reason to wait. Gregory needed help. The gutters needed cleaning. Dylan was between plans again. Mia told herself staying made sense for everyone. It had made her useful. It had not made her secure. She picked up the broken push broom. Show me how to test the foundation. Noah studied her face, then nodded toward the eastern wall. They began at the brick base. He showed her how to look for stepped cracks, shifted mortar, and places where water had washed soil away. Mia photographed each section and marked the location on a rough sketch. Near the cottage connection, they found a crack running through 3 mortar joints. Mia's stomach tightened. Noah scraped away moss with his screwdriver. It's old, he said. See the dirt inside? No fresh edge. We'll watch it. But it didn't happen in the last storm. That's good? It's one thing that isn't moving today. At the back corner, the downspout ended above a blocked channel. Water had been spilling against the base instead of draining toward the ditch. Mia pulled at the packed leaves with her gloved hands. Noah fetched a narrow shovel. They cleared several feet of channel until dark water broke loose and ran away from the greenhouse. Under the leaves, Mia found a small brass valve set low in the brick. Noah wiped it clean. That feeds the cottage line. The sink doesn't work. Gregory shut the cottage water off every winter. The main valve might still be open. He turned the brass handle carefully. Somewhere inside the wall, A pipe knocked once. Mia ran to the cottage. The sink faucet gave a dry cough, then released a stream of brown water. She let it run. The color thinned, clouded, and finally cleared. Noah stood in the doorway. "Don't drink it until it's tested," he said. "I wasn't going to. You were looking at it like cold spring water." Mia put both hands under the stream anyway. The water was painfully cold. She washed the soil from her fingers and then cleaned the potting dirt from her face properly. It was only a working tap, but it changed the cottage. She could clean tools, wash dishes, and flush the toilet with a bucket if the plumbing held. The place was still damp and barely habitable, yet it no longer felt completely cut off. She filled the old bucket and carried it beneath the ceiling leak. When she returned, Noah had spread his inspection notes across the potting counter. "I need to finish the frame tests," he said. Then we talked numbers. Mia placed her folded distribution beside his notes instead of hiding it back in her bag. "What do you need from me? A decision about what you're saving, the greenhouse. All of it?" She looked through the open door at the long structure. Morning light had begun to break through the cloud cover. It caught the central bench first, then the wet aisle around it. "For now," she said, "I need enough of it safe that nobody can lock me out." Noah took a pencil from behind his ear and drew a line around the eastern bay on his sketch. "Then, this is where we start." He tapped the pencil inside the line. "The east bay gives us one clear exit and the shortest run to the cottage. We can isolate the western damage while we work. Can it pass that way? Maybe. The notice says stabilize, not restore. We need to show the unsafe areas can't reach anyone using the safe ones. And the cost? I'll price materials this afternoon." Mia shook her head. "You already have an idea. I have an ugly idea." "How ugly?" Noah gathered his notes and stacked them carefully. "If the electrical panel is usable, and if we don't find rot under the roof seals, essential work could land near $18,000. Mia's whole savings, less what she'd spent on groceries and funeral clothes that month, came to a little over $19,000. She looked at the leaking ceiling, then at the distribution papers. "That includes your labor? That includes some of it. What does that mean?" "It means Gregory helped me get started. It doesn't mean I can leave paying jobs for 6 weeks. I'm not asking you to. You called me before sleeping in a wet cottage. I called because your card was on the wall, and I came because he would have wanted somebody to check the roof before you walked under it." Noah slid the notice toward her. "If you hire a full crew, you'll spend more. If I do the frame and glazing work myself, I lose jobs already on my calendar. Then why are we still talking?" "Because I need space." Mia waited. Noah looked through the cottage door at the eastern greenhouse bay. "The property where I keep my nursery stock is being sold. I repair greenhouses for income, but I still grow plants. Mostly young stock for local shops. My current lease ends in 2 months. You want to rent part of this place. I want to use one bay once it's safe. I can trade labor for that use. You cover materials and anyone I have to bring in. I handle the framework and glazing. For how long? We'd write it down. That wasn't my question. 1 year to start. We can review it after that." Mia thought of Dylan's release. He had asked for her signature before giving her a number. Noah had arrived with coffee, measured the damage, and still hadn't given her a complete one. "I want the labor value written down too." Noah's eyebrows lifted. "If I'm giving you a bay, I need to know what I'm getting. That's fair. And it can't prevent me from using the greenhouse. It won't. What if your plants bring pests? Then I lose them before they cross into your growing area. Separate tools, separate trays, inspection when stock comes in. You've considered this. I've needed a place for 6 months. Did Grandpa know?" "Yes." The answer came too quickly to be invented. "What did he say? That the East Bay had good morning light?" Mia looked at the line Noah had drawn. He had chosen the same bay Gregory mentioned. "Did he offer it to you?" A sucked no. By then he wasn't operating the nursery, and the roof needed work. He told me to stop trying to solve tomorrow before I got through Thursday. That sounds like him. It was a Thursday. Noah gave her his pencil. Mia added the words 1 year beside the Eastern Bay. Then she wrote separate stock and tools beneath it. "Put together the agreement," she said. "If the material figure stays under 18,000, I'll do it." Noah didn't reach for her hand. He looked at her long enough to make sure she understood. "That leaves you almost nothing. I'll pick up more evening work. You'll also be working here." "I know." "Do you?" "I'm making the decision." He took the pencil back. "All right." They returned to the greenhouse to decide what had to be removed before materials arrived. The eastern aisle held 12 benches. 7 were too rotten to save. 3 might be repaired. 1 metal propagation table had only surface rust. The central hardwood bench stood partly inside the area they planned to isolate. Noah marked the rotted benches with orange paint. Mia picked up one end of the nearest bench. The wood bent in the middle. "Don't lift that," Noah said. "You just marked it for removal. I marked it for careful removal. It's a table. It's a table held together by fungus." He cut the bench into sections with a small reciprocating saw. Mia carried each piece outside and stacked it beside the cart. Underneath, they found an irrigation line buried in bark and leaves. The plastic tubing had split in 2 places, but the shutoff valve still turned. The second bench came apart faster. Behind it was a narrow service path along the brick wall. Gregory had painted small white marks above the water connections, 1 for each growing section. Mia wiped dirt from the nearest mark. "He used to number everything," she said. He stopped after someone moved his labels. "Dylan?" "No, me." Mia smiled despite herself. "You moved Grandpa's labels?" I reorganized his tools without asking. He spent 3 days calling every screwdriver Margaret. "Why Margaret?" He wouldn't tell me. They removed the third bench without finding anything beyond cracked trays and an old coil of hose. At the fourth, Noah stopped cutting. "This wood is sound." Mia pressed a thumb against the frame. "Then, why did you mark it?" "I marked the one behind it." They lifted the sound bench together. It was heavy but movable. Once they tipped it onto a hand cart, 4 clean squares showed where the legs had stood on the concrete. Mia looked toward the center. "Every bench can move. So far. That one can't. We knew it was bolted. We knew it was unusual. That's different." Noah set the cart down. "What are you trying to prove?" "I don't know yet." She went to the central bench and examined the masonry base again. With more daylight entering through the cleared east wall, she could see where old gray mortar met a smoother band of pale mortar. The newer work formed a complete rectangle. Noah crouched beside her. "This wasn't patched," Mia said. "It was added." "Yes." "After the floor?" "Long after." He took a small level from his belt and placed it against the side. Then he measured the masonry and wrote the dimensions in his notebook. Mia moved around the other side. Near the floor, a short metal pipe entered the base and disappeared behind the bricks. It was no wider than her thumb. A rubber cap covered its end. "What's this?" Noah touched it. "Could have been part of a drainage system." "Could have?" "It doesn't slope toward the drain." He removed the rubber cap. No water came out. Mia knelt beside him. Cool air touched her wrist. There it is again. Noah shone a flashlight into the pipe. It extended several inches before turning. "Ventilation," he said, "for a bench, not for the plants above it." He stood and examined the bench top. Between the hardwood slats, a metal sheet lay beneath the growing surface. He slid a thin strip of paper into one seam. The paper moved. Mia watched it pull downward and lift again. "That isn't coming from the greenhouse." "No." "So there's space under it. There's space somewhere inside the base. Big enough for what?" Noah put the rubber cap back. "I can't tell you that." Mia walked around the bench once more. Gregory had built a sealed masonry base, ventilated it, and fastened a sound bench over the top. Whatever purpose it served, it wasn't the ordinary growing table it appeared to be. "Let's remove the bolts." "No." "You said they're carrying the bench." "I said they're carrying weight. We don't know how the top is attached inside." "You also said this section has to be cleared. It has to be safe. That bench isn't rotten, and it isn't blocking the exit." Mia put her hand on the wood. "If we wait until after repairs, it could be weeks." "Yes." "What if it affects the inspection?" "Then we deal with it. Right now, taking it apart could create a problem we don't have." She disliked the answer because it was sensible. Noah marked the base on his drawing and wrote, "Do not disturb" beside it. "At least tell me whether Grandpa built it. The mortar looks like his work." "You can recognize his mortar?" "I mixed enough of it." "When?" Noah looked at the base before answering. "About 8 years ago, he had me repair brick along the north wall. This looks like the same mix." "Did you help with this bench?" "No." "Did you see it?" "I saw stacks of brick in here. I thought he was rebuilding drains." "Did he say anything?" "He told me to finish the north wall and leave the middle alone." Mia waited for more. "That's all?" Noah said. He remembered Gregory working late that week with the doors locked. At the time, Noah had assumed the old man wanted quiet. Gregory could become private when he was testing a breeding cross. Noah had no reason then to connect the new brick with anything hidden, and he wasn't going to turn a vague memory into an answer for Mia now. They finished clearing the eastern aisle by early afternoon. Noah tested the electrical panel without energizing it. Moisture had entered through a cracked conduit, and several breakers showed corrosion. "This won't pass," he said. "How much?" "I need an electrician to price it. Is it included in the 18,000? I allowed for an inspection, not a full panel." Mia stared at the rust stains. "So the number's already wrong." "The number was an idea. This is information. It's expensive information." "Yes." Her phone buzzed with a message from her supervisor at the office. Mia had asked to move her weekday hours earlier for the next 6 weeks. The request had been approved, though she would have to arrive before the building officially opened and cover 2 evening reports from home. She showed Noah. "I can work here after 3. You have internet?" Mia looked toward the dead telephone. "I'll use my phone. You barely had a signal last night. Then I'll sit near the road." Noah closed the electrical panel. "You don't have to prove you can suffer more efficiently than everyone else. I'm proving I can pay for the glass." She called the restaurant where she worked weekends and asked for open evening shifts. The manager offered her 3 that week. Mia accepted all 3 before she could calculate the sleep she would lose. That afternoon, Noah sent her the material estimate. Glass, seals, fasteners, roof bracing, disposal, drainage supplies, and a reserve for the electrical work came to just under the limit they had discussed. His labor credit appeared on a separate line. So did the future use of the eastern bay. Mia read the page sitting on the cottage step. She could still stop. No money had moved. The greenhouse remained hers, whether she repaired it or not. At least until the deadline brought consequences she couldn't control. Dylan sent another message while she was reading. The developer wants an answer. Mia opened her banking application instead. She paid the supplier deposit Noah had listed. The transfer reduced her savings by more than half. A minute later, Noah's phone sounded inside his truck. He checked the confirmation and looked across the yard at her. "Materials arrive Monday," he said. Mia folded the estimate around her copy of the distribution. "Then, what can we finish before Monday?" Noah handed her a pry bar and pointed toward the next rotted bench, leaving the bolted one untouched in the cleared center. Mia wedged it beneath the soft frame and pressed down. The wood separated with a wet cracking sound. A colony of pale insects scattered through the split, and she dropped the bar. Noah stepped on the broken section. "Those are gone now. I wasn't worried. You moved 6 feet. I was giving them room." He cut the frame into shorter pieces. By sunset, they had cleared 2 more benches and opened the service path along the entire eastern wall. The work changed the sound of the greenhouse. Wind no longer pushed through leaves and loose plastic at every step. Footsteps carried cleanly along the concrete. From the cottage door, Mia could see almost to the north wall. The bolted bench remained in the center, exposed now that the clutter around it was gone. She looked at it whenever they passed. Noah noticed, but said nothing. Monday morning, the glass arrived on a flatbed truck while Mia was answering office emails from her car. She had parked near the road where the signal was strongest. Her laptop rested on the steering wheel, and an extension cord ran through the open window to a temporary power box Noah had brought. The driver needed a signature. Mia checked each crate against the delivery list before signing. One bundle contained the wrong seals. Noah caught it when he opened the top carton. "They'll have to replace these," he said. Mia called the supplier herself. The man who answered tried to tell her the seals were close enough. She read the product number from Noah's order, then the number printed on the carton. "They're for a different glazing bar," she said. "They can sometimes be fitted, not to the frame I'm repairing." Noah stood nearby, cleaning old sealant from a metal channel. He kept his face down, but he was listening. The supplier agreed to send the correct cartons the next morning at no added charge. Mia ended the call. "Was that a decision?" she asked. It was almost a frightening display of authority. "Don't overdo it. I wouldn't dare." They stored the glass against the eastern brick wall. Mia returned to her office work until early afternoon. Then she changed into old clothes in the cottage bathroom and joined Noah on the roof platform. He had installed temporary rails and tied both of them to separate safety lines. Mia's job was to remove old clips, clean the glazing channels, and pass new hardware. It looked simple from the ground. From the platform, every movement required attention. "Keep your weight over the frame," Noah said. "You've told me. I'll keep telling you. The first replacement pane took nearly an hour. Noah lowered it into the clean channel while Mia guided one corner. When it settled into place, the glass reflected the clouds without a crack or a stain. Mia leaned back to look at it. "One," Noah said. "How many? Don't ask from up here." By the middle of the week, they had installed 9. Mia worked mornings from the car, repaired the greenhouse during the afternoon, and drove to the restaurant after changing in its staff bathroom. She returned to the cottage near midnight, smelling of cooking oil and coffee. Twice she fell asleep without taking off her socks. Noah arrived before 7 each morning. He never commented on the dark circles beneath her eyes. He began leaving breakfast beside her laptop instead. On Thursday, an electrician examined the panel and confirmed that the damaged breakers could be replaced without changing the entire service. The conduit needed sealing, and power to the Western Bay would remain disconnected until the roof there was repaired. The price fit inside Noah's reserve, but only just. Mia approved it. By Friday, the East Bay had a full row of clear roof panes. Noah replaced the damaged vent arm. Mia cleaned the drainage channel and painted the safe exit posts white, copying Gregory's old marks where she could still see them. They built a temporary partition at the edge of the unsafe western section. It used rigid panels fixed to the frame, with a lockable service gate for repair access. The barrier wasn't pretty, but it stopped anyone from wandering beneath loose glass. When they finished, Noah walked the route from the cottage door to the east exit while Mia watched. "No obstructions," he said. "No exposed edges. Drainage is moving. The vent is secure. You sound surprised. I sound tired. Does this mean the East Bay is safe? It means I'd work in it." That wasn't my question. Noah removed his hard hat and looked up through the repaired roof. "Yes, this section is safe." Mia stood in the center aisle. The eastern floor was swept. The metal propagation table had been cleaned and leveled. Sunlight reached the bricks for the first time in years. It wasn't a working nursery. It had no plants, heat, or reliable misting system. Half the building still sat behind a temporary barrier, but one bay no longer felt abandoned. Noah took a folded agreement from his jacket. I added the labor values and separate stock terms. They read it at the potting counter. The agreement gave Noah future use of the East Bay for 1 year after final inspection. His labor credit applied only to the listed stabilization work. Mia remained responsible for utilities and the structure. Noah would maintain his own plants, tools, and insurance. There was also a clause allowing either of them to end the arrangement if plant health or unsafe working conditions threatened the other's operation. "You added a way out," Mia said, "for both of us. Are you expecting trouble? I'm expecting plants. They get sick, pumps fail, people disagree." Gregory had often made agreements with a handshake, then complained when the other person remembered a different hand. Mia signed. Noah signed beneath her. The agreement made the work feel more serious than the supplier deposit had. Someone else was planning his livelihood around a bay she had promised to make usable. Noah gave her one copy. "You should keep it somewhere dry." Mia looked at the ceiling bucket. "I'll put it in the car." A vehicle rolled over the gravel outside. Tammy parked behind the flatbed crates. She stepped out carrying a covered dish and stared at the new glass. Mia folded the agreement and placed it on the counter. Tammy entered through the cottage. Her gaze went first to the temporary power box, then to Noah's tools, then to the row of clear panes overhead. "You've done all this already?" "We've started." Tammy held out the dish. "Chicken and rice. I made too much." Mia accepted it. "Thank you. You haven't called. I've been working. I can see that." Noah came down from the platform and greeted her. Tammy replied politely, though her eyes settled on the agreement before Mia could move it. "What's that?" "A use agreement." "For what?" "Noah is trading some labor for future use of the East Bay." Tammy looked from Mia to Noah. "You're giving away part of the property?" "No," Mia said. "He'll use one bay, for free, in exchange for labor." "How much labor?" "It's written down." Tammy put her handbag on the cleanest section of the counter and held out her hand. Mia didn't give her the paper. The refusal was small, but Tammy felt it. Mia had always handed over forms. Employment letters, insurance statements, rental applications, anything official went to Tammy for a second look. "I'm only trying to make sure it's fair," Tammy said. "I read it. Did anyone else?" "Noah and I did. That isn't what I mean." Mia set the covered dish beside the sink. "I know." Tammy's eyes moved toward the greenhouse. A week earlier, the place had been useful to her only as proof that Mia had made a bad choice. The new panes interfered with that certainty. So did the cleared aisle and the marked exit. How much have you spent? Mia didn't answer. That much? Most of my savings. Tammy pressed her lips together. The developer might increase the demolition payment? Might. Dylan says there's room. Then he can put a number in writing. You've already spent money you may not recover. I spent it on my property. Tammy stepped into the greenhouse. She stopped beneath the new roof and looked along the eastern wall. Her father's nursery had once annoyed her with its constant needs. Pumps failed during dinners. Deliveries arrived on holidays. Gregory missed family plans because a heater stopped in freezing weather. Tammy had spent years believing the place took more from the family than it gave. Now, Mia stood inside it, wearing Gregory's old sweatshirt, and Tammy saw something she wasn't prepared to name. She touched the cleaned metal table. You did this? Mostly. It looks better. Thank you. The words were so ordinary that Tammy almost relaxed. Then she noticed the bolted central bench. Why didn't you remove that one? It's fixed to the base. Your grandfather put that in later. Mia turned toward her. You remember? I remember him buying brick when he should have been paying someone to fix the house porch. Did he tell you what it was for? No. He said it was nursery work. Did you ever see inside it? Inside a bench? The masonry base is ventilated. Tammy gave it another look, but there was no recognition in her face, only mild irritation at another Gregory project that had cost money without explanation. If it isn't dangerous, leave it alone, she said. You have enough problems. Noah looked at Mia. Her mother's answer had confirmed one useful thing. Whatever Gregory built beneath the bench, Tammy hadn't been included in it. Mia walked Tammy back to her car. At the gate, Tammy paused. Dylan's under pressure. So am I. He has people expecting an answer. I have an inspection deadline. He could help you get out before that becomes your problem. It became my problem when the property became mine. Tammy pulled her car key from her handbag. You still have time to be sensible. I'm not discussing a sale again until the greenhouse has been inspected. That could take all the money you have, I know. And if it fails, then I'll decide what to do after it fails. Tammy wanted to say Mia had never been good at knowing when to stop. Instead, she looked through the fence at Noah, carrying a repaired metal table into the east bay. I'll tell Dylan, she said. Tell him not to bring another release before the inspection. Tammy got into her car. Mia stood beside the gate until she drove away. Her hands were shaking slightly, though the conversation had never become loud. Noah joined her. You all right? She brought dinner. I saw. She always brings food when she wants something to go quietly. What did she want? The same thing. Just quieter. They carried the last damaged vent frame to the disposal stack. Before dark, Noah mounted a temporary exterior light above the cottage door. The electrician turned on the approved cottage circuit, and the bulb came to life. Mia went inside and flipped the sink switch. A smaller light glowed over the potting counter. For the first time, she didn't need her phone to see the room after sunset. She heated Tammy's chicken and rice on a borrowed hot plate. Noah ate one serving, standing at the counter before leaving for another job. Mia wrapped the rest for the next day. Later, she took a flashlight into the east bay. The new glass held against the evening wind. The repaired vent stayed still. She checked the exit, the drain, and the temporary partition. On her way back, the flashlight crossed the bolted bench. The strip of pale mortar showed clearly now. Mia placed her hand near the capped pipe and felt the same dry current. Outside the fence, headlights slowed. Dylan's truck stopped along the road but didn't turn in. He sat there long enough to see the repaired roof and the light over the cottage door. Then he drove on. The next morning, orange survey flags appeared in the grass on both neighboring parcels, running in straight lines toward Mia's boundary. Mia left the flags where they were. Noah checked them against the parcel drawing on her distribution papers. Each one stood a few inches outside her line. They're not claiming your ground, he said. Then, what are they doing? Showing how close the project comes if Dylan moves forward without you. The flags ran beside the cedar fence, turned behind the greenhouse, and continued across the empty lot to the west. On the eastern side, they marked another narrow parcel that had once been a field. Mia stood inside a shape the surveyor had carefully avoided. Can they build around me? They can try. Would it affect the inspection? Not today. Your deadline is about the structure. A truck door closed near the road. Dylan came through the gate carrying a white envelope. He wore clean work boots that had never met wet soil. His eyes went to the survey flags first, then the repaired glazing. "You've been busy," he said. "You had the land surveyed. The neighboring land? Your boundary was already recorded. You could have told me. I'm telling you now." After the flags appeared, Dylan handed her the envelope. "That's the updated offer." Mia didn't open it. "It covers demolition and gives you a cash payment," he said. "You'd come out with more than you started with." "She'd also come out without the property," Noah said. Dylan looked at him. "This is family business." Noah picked up a crate of fasteners. "Then don't have it in my work area." He carried the crate into the greenhouse. Dylan waited until he was out of hearing, though Noah could still hear him through the open glass door. "He's getting a free lease from you? He's earning the use of a bay, according to him, according to our agreement. You signed something?" Mia put the envelope on the hood of her car. "Yes. Without having anyone review it? I reviewed it." Dylan breathed through his nose. "Mom said you were doing this. I thought she meant you'd let him store some tools. She told you about the bench, too?" "What bench?" Mia watched his face. "The fixed one in the greenhouse?" "No. Why would I care about a bench?" He didn't know. Like Tammy, he saw only a damaged table in a building he wanted removed. "You wouldn't," Mia said. Dylan pushed the envelope closer to her. "Open it." She did. The developer's offer was simple. Mia would transfer the parcel. The developer would take responsibility for demolition and closing costs. Mia would receive a payment a little larger than the repair figure she had committed. For one unsteady moment, the amount worked exactly as intended. It looked like her savings returned, with enough left for a rental deposit and several quiet months. Dylan saw the hesitation. "This is a good way out. How much is your commission?" He looked toward the road. "Why are you obsessed with that?" "Because you keep calling this a favor. It can be good for both of us." "How much, Dylan?" He lowered his voice. "Enough to clear some things." "Your cards?" "Some things." "The car?" "I said I have obligations." Mia folded the offer. There was the piece he had kept soft and vague. He needed her land because he had already begun counting money from a deal that wasn't his to make. "You promised them my parcel," she said. "I told them it was likely. Before asking me. Before Grandpa died, everyone assumed the nursery would be sold." "Who's everyone?" "Mom, me, people with common sense." "Did Grandpa?" Dylan didn't answer. Mia held the envelope out to him. "I said I wouldn't discuss a sale before inspection. At least keep it. No? The figure may not stay open, then it doesn't." He took the envelope but didn't put it away. "You know what happens if they build around you? Construction for months, noise, mud, trucks on the road. You'll have a broken greenhouse between rental houses. Then I'll have to fix the greenhouse. You can't afford this because you're too proud to leave." Mia looked through the open door at the clear eastern roof. "You thought I'd last one night." Dylan had thought exactly that. He slid the envelope into his jacket. "The survey work continues. Tell Noah not to move the flags." "He already told me." That irritated Dylan more than it should have. He walked back to his truck. Before getting in, he looked toward the bolted central bench. From the road, there was nothing remarkable about it. Still, Mia's question stayed with him because she had asked it while testing his face. He drove away without knowing what he had been tested for. Noah came out carrying 2 lengths of metal bracing. "Did you take the offer?" "No." "Did you read it?" "Yes." "Good. You would have told me to consider it." "I would have told you to read it. That isn't the same." "No, it's your mistake to make, whichever way you choose." They had planned to replace damaged seals along the eastern ridge that afternoon. A weather report changed the order. Strong wind and heavy rain were expected by nightfall, and the western vent assembly still twisted against the frame when gusts came from the water. If it broke loose, it could tear into the section they had repaired. Noah set the metal lengths on sawhorses. "We brace the western ridge now." "Behind the partition?" "Yes." "You said it wasn't safe." "It isn't safe for regular access." "We'll use the exterior platform." The additional brace wasn't on the original materials list. Noah could adapt 2 shorter pieces, but they needed new mounting plates. Mia checked the balance in the repair account. "How much?" "I can make the plates. That takes your time. So does waiting for a delivery. You said your labor credit only covered the listed work." Noah glanced at her. "You read the agreement. I told you I did. He leaned the braces against the platform. I'll add the hours. We settle it by extending my use if the total goes beyond the credit. How long? We don't know yet. I'm not agreeing to something we don't know. Then help me make the plates. It'll take half the time. They drove to Noah's workshop in an industrial row outside town. His rented unit held a welding table, shelves of fittings, 3 small refrigeration cabinets, and rows of young plants beneath grow lights. This was the independent part of his life Mia had never seen. Everything was labeled. Repair jobs occupied one side. Nursery stock filled the other. A section near the door had already been packed into plastic trays for his eventual move. You really do need the bay, she said. I wasn't collecting greenhouse space for pleasure. Why didn't Grandpa let you use it? He was sick by the time my lease became a problem. I wasn't going to ask him to reopen a building he couldn't maintain. Noah measured the mounting plates and showed Mia where to mark them. He cut the steel, she filed the edges, drilled the bolt holes, and painted the bare metal. The first plate fit. The second needed one hole widened. By mid-afternoon, both braces were fixed beneath the western ridge. The wind arrived before dark. It pressed against the old panes, but the vent assembly held. Rain struck the roof in hard bursts. Mia and Noah watched from inside the east bay. Water slipped through 2 old seals near the partition, ran down the glazing bar, and reached the floor without spreading toward the cottage. The new drainage line is working, Mia said. So is your roof. Part of it. Part of it is more than you had last week. The electricity flickered once and stayed on. The storm exposed another problem the following morning. A low section of heating pipe had filled with rainwater from a broken roof drain years earlier. Rust flaked from the joint when Noah touched it. If they pressurized the old heating loop, it would leak. The inspection doesn't require heat, he said. But plants do. Eventually. Mia crouched beside the pipe. Can we isolate the east bay? Gregory used separate zones. If the valves still hold. They followed the heating line beneath the benches. Most labels had faded, but the white marks on the brick showed where each zone began. At the north end, Mia found 3 valve handles behind a stack of empty trays. The first was frozen. The second turned halfway. The third moved with steady pressure. Noah connected a small test pump to the eastern loop. Mia watched the gauge while he checked each joint. Pressure's holding, she called. For now? They waited. The needle stayed in place. Noah opened the valve carefully. Water moved through the east loop without reaching the corroded western pipe. That's usable, he said. Does it mean we can heat this bay? If the boiler works. Does it? We haven't started it. Mia looked toward the utility room at the north end. The door had swollen shut, and rust covered the lower hinge. Noah saw where her attention went. Passing code and running a nursery are 2 different jobs. I know. Do you? Ask me after we open that door. They spent an hour freeing it. Mia worked the pry bar along the frame while Noah removed the hinge pins. The door finally shifted, releasing a smell of dust and old fuel. Inside stood Gregory's compact boiler, 2 circulation pumps, and a wall of labeled controls. The system was old but dry. A maintenance card hung from the nearest pipe. The last service entry was from the year before Gregory died. Noah checked the oil line, pump housing, and pressure tank. He didn't start the boiler. This deserves a proper service first, he said. But he didn't abandon it. He shut it down correctly. That answer was useful. It also changed the size of the task. Mia no longer saw only a building that might avoid condemnation. The East Bay had intact heating pipes, working drainage, electricity, and new glass. With repairs, it could grow something again. Her phone rang while she photographed the maintenance card. The caller introduced himself as Christopher Green. Mia knew the name from old delivery invoices. Gregory had supplied orchids to the Delaware Botanical Conservatory for years. I heard the White Orchid house still has a roof, Christopher said. Most of one. And I heard someone's repairing it. Mia looked at Noah. He was examining the circulation pump. Yes. Christopher paused. I'd like to come by. For what? To see what survived. Mia looked across the cleared bay, past the sound metal table and the fixed bench in the center. When? Tomorrow morning, if you'll allow it. This time, she didn't ask who else should decide. Come at 10, she said. The next morning, Mia paid the final electrical invoice before Christopher arrived. She sat in her car with the banking screen open and added every repair charge again. Glass, seals, bracing, disposal, the temporary partition, drainage supplies, electrical work, and the materials Noah couldn't salvage came to exactly $18,000. She checked the total 3 times. Then she sent the payment. Her savings account dropped to an amount that would cover food, fuel, and little else. The restaurant shifts would keep her moving, but there was no cushion left for a failed boiler or another section of roof. Noah knocked on the car window. "You did it?" "Yes." "You look ill." "I'm getting used to expensive mornings." He leaned down to see the screen. Mia closed the banking application before he could read the balance. "Don't ask," she said. "I was going to ask if you're ready for your visitor. That's worse." Christopher arrived at 10 in an older dark green sedan. He parked outside the gate and came in carrying a canvas case and a small notebook. At 64, he had a careful way of walking that made him seem slower than he was. He wore a tan jacket, a blue shirt buttoned at the collar, and shoes better suited to an office than wet gravel. His gray hair lifted in the wind. He stopped when he saw the greenhouse. For a long moment, he said nothing. Mia walked to meet him. "Mr. Green?" "Christopher, please." They shook hands. He kept looking past her. "I expected less." "Less standing?" "Much less." Noah came from the utility room. Christopher's expression warmed. "Reeves. Good to see you. Gregory said you'd either become very capable or electrocute yourself. He said that to me, too. He may have said it to everyone." Christopher walked the outside perimeter before entering. He touched one of the old glazing bars, examined the repaired vent, and studied the temporary partition. "You did this in a week?" "Most of it," Mia said. Noah corrected her. "She means we haven't slept in a week." Christopher looked at the cottage. "You're staying here?" "For now." He didn't tell her she shouldn't. That separated him from Tammy before he'd even stepped inside. Mia handed him a hard hat. He accepted it without complaint. The East Bay held clean light that morning. Rain had washed the new glass, and the white posts made the aisle look wider. Christopher moved slowly between the benches, stopping where old hooks and irrigation fittings remained. He knew the place by use, not by memory alone. "Gregory kept mature plants here," he said, pointing to the south side. "Young stock on that wall. He moved anything flowering toward the center because he liked to see it from the cottage. There aren't any plants now." "No?" Christopher picked up an empty clay pot and ran a thumb over the mineral line inside it. "Did he sell everything when he closed?" Mia asked. "Some. He gave away more than he admitted. The conservatory took several mature specimens." "Are those valuable?" "To us, yes. They're part of our collection." "They aren't yours, if that's what you mean." "I wasn't asking for them back." "I know. I prefer clear answers around plants. People become vague when value enters the room." Noah looked toward Mia. Dylan had become vague before value entered any room. Christopher passed the sound metal table and stopped at the bolted bench. "This wasn't here when I first bought from him." "We think he added the base about 8 years ago," Mia said. Christopher rested his fingers on the hardwood surface. He changed the center layout after a bad winter, said he was tired of losing years of work to one failed heater. What did he use this for? Propagation sometimes. "He kept trays here when I visited." "Did you ever see under it?" Christopher looked at the bolts. His answer took half a second longer than the question required. "No." It was true, as far as Mia understood the question. He had never seen beneath the completed bench. What he had seen before Gregory died belonged to a later day, and a promise he had made to a sick man. He didn't yet know whether that promise had any meaning left. The building might contain nothing but Gregory's precautions and an old man's hope. Mia showed him the capped pipe. Air moves through it. Christopher crouched, but he didn't remove the cap. Gregory believed stable conditions mattered more than expensive equipment, he said. He insulated anything he couldn't afford to lose. What couldn't he afford to lose? Christopher stood. "That's what I came to ask you." Mia waited. He continued toward the north end, leaving the bench untouched. In the utility room, Noah showed him the boiler and the maintenance card. Christopher read the final service entry. "Can it run?" he asked. "Probably," Noah said. "I won't start it before cleaning the burner and testing the safety controls." "When can you do that?" "I have 2 customer jobs ahead of it." Mia turned to him. "How long?" 4 or 5 days. "I can help." "Not with a burner service. I can clear the room." "You can clear the room." Christopher opened his canvas case on the metal table. Inside were photographs protected by clear sleeves. The first showed Gregory holding a white orchid with a dark rose center. Another showed 3 smaller plants lined up at the conservatory. Dates and plant codes were written on the backs. Mia recognized Gregory's handwriting on 2 of them. What are these? Plants he bred here. Christopher placed the photographs in order. Your grandfather spent years crossing orchids that could flower reliably in smaller indoor spaces. That part wasn't unusual. What became unusual was their tolerance for temperature swings and salt in the water. Salt? Coastal growers fight it. So do conservatories using recycled systems. Gregory kept selecting plants that handle difficult water without losing the bloom. Noah leaned closer to the photographs. He talked about a compact line, he said. He talked about many things, Christopher replied. This one worked. Mia touched the edge of a photograph. Where are these plants? The mature trial plants were lost after a cooling failure at a contract facility. The conservatory specimens in these pictures were returned to Gregory before that. He wanted to make his final selections here. Did he? He registered the line 3 years ago. Registration protected the name and recorded the parentage. It didn't create a supply. Mia looked around the empty greenhouse. Then it's gone. Possibly. Christopher said it without false comfort. He was still working on it shortly before he died. He told me he had selected the strongest stock, but he never delivered it for our final trial. What kind of stock? Small propagated plants or tissue cultures? Enough to produce a new generation if they remained clean and alive. Mia remembered the cold, dry air beneath the central bench. She didn't speak. Christopher saw her look toward it. He closed the photograph sleeve. Don't decide what's inside something before you open it, he said. You think there's stock here? I think Gregory didn't discard work easily. That's different. Did you look after he died? No. This property belonged to the estate, and then to you. I had no right to search it. He returned the photographs to the case. Mia felt the weight of the distribution papers in her pocket. Her family had treated the contents as broken pots and demolition waste. Christopher treated even the empty benches as things he needed permission to touch. What would the line be worth, she asked. If viable stock exists, it would require independent testing. Identity, contamination, growth strength. Then someone would have to propagate it properly. That wasn't my question. No, it's the answer that comes before money. Mia kept waiting. Christopher folded his hands over the canvas case. The conservatory had planned a long supply relationship with Gregory, not a one-time purchase. We need plants for our own displays, education partners, and several coastal collections. A stable, exclusive line would be valuable to us. How valuable? I won't place a figure on material I haven't seen. Dylan would have called that avoidance. Mia heard a difference. Christopher's uncertainty had conditions she could understand. If nothing survived, she said, does the nursery have any value to the conservatory? As a building? No. We don't buy real estate. The answer hurt, but it was useful. As a supplier? Not without plants, clean propagation space, and someone who can deliver consistently. I don't know how to do that. No, Christopher said. You don't. Noah shifted beside her. Christopher's tone wasn't cruel. He was stating the part that neither new glass nor determination could replace. Your grandfather spent decades learning this work, he said. You can learn, but the greenhouse won't become his nursery because you clean it. I'm not trying to become him. Good. He was terrible with invoices. Noah laughed. Christopher's expression softened. If you want only to pass inspection and keep the cottage, you've already made sensible progress. Seal the building, maintain the parcel, and use the East Bay under your agreement. There's dignity in stopping there. Mia looked through the greenhouse. A week ago, that would have sounded like victory, a safe place to sleep, a locked door. Enough repairs to stop Dylan from treating the property as an obstacle awaiting removal. Now she knew Gregory had brought years of work close to completion here. The empty building wasn't merely damaged, it was interrupted. What would I need to reopen as a propagation nursery? She asked. Noah looked at her. Christopher answered carefully. Reliable heat, clean water, a sanitary work area, records, growing stock, training, customers eventually. That's all? That's the short list. I just spent everything I could spend on the code work. Then don't make promises today. I'm asking what comes next. Christopher watched her for a moment. First, find out what Gregory left. Not what your family thinks he left, not what I hope he left. Inventory this place properly. Mia glanced toward the bolted bench again. Can you help identify things? I can identify his plant codes and cultivation notes. I won't authenticate living stock. That requires an independent specialist. Would you come back if we find anything? Yes. The answer gave the search a shape. Christopher wrote his direct number on the back of his card. Then he opened his case again and handed Mia copies of 3 photographs. He kept the originals. These codes were associated with the final line, he said. If you find matching labels, don't open containers or move material into warm light. Call me first. Mia read the codes. They meant nothing to her yet. Why didn't you tell me any of this at the funeral? You just buried your grandfather. The property hadn't been distributed. There was nothing useful I could ask you to do. And now you open the gate. After Christopher left, Mia stood at the potting counter with the photographs and his card. Her office supervisor called before she could put them away. One of Mia's evening reports had been submitted late after the storm repairs. The supervisor approved her altered schedule for the rest of the week, but told her plainly that another late report would end the arrangement. Mia apologized and accepted the warning. When the call ended, Noah was waiting near the utility room door. You can still stop at a safe greenhouse, he said. I know. You have almost no money left. I know. You have a job that's beginning to notice. I heard her. He pointed toward the central bench. And we're not opening that until the roof work is finished. I heard you too. Mia placed Christopher's photographs in a clean drawer and wrote the plant codes on her inventory sheet. Then she changed the heading at the top. She crossed out items remaining. In its place, she wrote, what the nursery needs. Clear the boiler room, she said. That comes next. Noah handed her a dust mask and opened both utility room windows. They carried out empty fuel cans, cracked trays, and a cabinet with a rusted bottom. The cabinet doors came off in Mia's hands. Behind it, they found an old water treatment unit connected to the greenhouse line. Noah wiped dust from the 2 filter housings. This is useful. Does it work? It's plumbing. Working is usually a matter of replacing the parts that don't. Mia added filters to her list. The boiler room took most of the day. She finished her office reports during lunch, sitting on an upturned bucket near the temporary power box. She sent the second report early and saved the confirmation on her phone. At 3, she called Christopher. I'm making a reopening list, she said. I need to know what has to be cleaned before plants ever come inside. He gave her instructions in the same direct way he'd answered questions during his visit. Clean water came first, then washable surfaces, separate tools, pest control, airflow, and a place to record temperatures. Don't buy a laboratory, he told her. Gregory didn't have one. What did he use for tissue culture? He started some material himself, but he sent most flask work to a specialist. Your first job isn't producing more. It's learning whether you have anything to protect. Mia looked toward the central bench. We'll open it after the roof work, then prepare before you do. Clean table, gloves, photographs. Don't warm anything quickly. You sound as if you expect something. I expect you to handle the possibility carefully. Christopher told her where Gregory used to keep his temperature logs. The drawer was empty now, but the wall above it still held clips for recording sheets. Mia printed blank charts at the office the next morning. She didn't ask Tammy whether Gregory's old records had been taken to the house. If they were there, Tammy didn't know their value, and Mia wasn't ready to explain why she wanted them. She began recording the greenhouse temperature at 7 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and 10 at night. Without heat, the numbers moved too quickly. The eastern bay warmed under the sun and lost nearly everything after dark. Noah serviced the boiler on Wednesday. He cleaned the burner, replaced a clogged filter, and tested the safety shutoff. Mia used money from her restaurant shifts to buy the small parts. It wasn't enough to threaten rent because she didn't have rent. That thought came to her while counting bills at the hardware counter, and she didn't know whether it was comfort or warning. Back at the greenhouse, Noah filled the eastern loop. Stand by the thermostat, he called. Mia waited beside the utility room door. Turn it up 2 degrees, she moved the dial. The burner clicked. A motor started, stumbled, and stopped. Noah opened the housing again. What happened? Old fuel line. Is that expensive? Not yet. He bled air from the line and tried again. This time, the burner caught with a low, steady sound. Mia listened. Heat didn't rush into the room. The pipes warmed gradually, first near the boiler, then along the north wall. She walked the length of the east bay with one hand above the line. Near the central bench, the pipe remained cold. Noah. He joined her and traced the branch beneath the masonry base. "This section isn't connected to the greenhouse loop," he said. "What is it connected to?" He followed the narrow pipe as far as he could see. It disappeared into the base near the capped vent. Whatever Gregory built inside has its own system. A heater, maybe insulation with a small heat source, maybe only airflow. The power is disconnected, so nothing is running now. But the air is dry. Yes. They stood beside the bench while the greenhouse pipes warmed around them. Mia wanted to remove the bolts that minute. The roof above the center aisle still needed 2 permanent braces and a damaged pane replaced. Noah had been consistent about the order, and now she understood enough to agree. If the bench held fragile material, opening it beneath a roof that still shed water would be careless. She returned to the thermostat. By sunset, the east bay had gained 2 degrees. The boiler cycled off as it should. At 10, the temperature had fallen only slightly. Mia wrote the number on her chart. The next morning, condensation covered the inside of the new glass. It gathered in clean lines and ran toward the gutters instead of dripping onto the floor. Noah entered carrying a tray of small green plants. Mia stared at it. "What are those?" "Common Phalaenopsis seedlings." "Nothing rare. The agreement starts after inspection. These aren't moving in." He set the tray on the metal propagation table. "They're spending 1 day here. If the temperature swings or the water has a problem, I'd rather learn it with stock I can replace." Mia examined the plants. Each one had 2 or 3 thick leaves and a white label. "You're trusting my boiler test with living plants." "I'm trusting my own boiler service." "That sounds more like you." They tested the filtered water. The old treatment unit needed new cartridges, but the supply line itself was clear. Mia flushed it until the mineral reading dropped, then filled a clean container with treated water from Noah's portable filter. He showed her how to check the underside of each leaf before bringing the tray past the door. No spots, no webbing, no insects around the roots. "Separate tools," Mia said. She placed a clean pair of scissors beside the tray. "Temperature log?" She pointed to the clipboard. "Pest record?" She held up another sheet. Noah nodded once. "You've been listening." "That's what people keep saying." They left the seedlings on the metal table through the afternoon. The east bay held its temperature. The vent opened when sunlight warmed the glass and closed again before evening. At 9, Mia checked the plants beneath the temporary work lights. The leaves remained firm. No condensation had collected in their crowns. She sent Noah a photograph. His reply came while she was wiping the table. "They can stay until morning." It was the first night in years that living orchids sat beneath the white orchid house roof. They weren't Gregory's. They weren't valuable. They belonged to Noah and would return to his workshop after the test. Still, Mia moved the temperature clipboard closer to the table before going to the cottage. At 6 the next morning, every seedling looked as it had the day before. Noah arrived, checked the leaves, and lifted the tray. "The bay works," Mia said. The bay held for 1 night. It worked for 1 night. He allowed her that. They spent the rest of the morning installing the 2 permanent braces above the center aisle. Mia measured the mounting positions from the platform. Noah drilled. They fitted the final damaged pane just before lunch. When they climbed down, the central bench sat beneath a roof that no longer leaked. Mia touched the first bolt. "Now?" "After inspection." "That wasn't the agreement." "No, that's the sensible order. You said after the roof work." "I said we weren't opening it before the roof work." "There's a difference. You create differences when you want to win. I create differences when you want to dismantle something you don't understand." She folded her arms. Noah pointed around the greenhouse. "The bench isn't going anywhere. Your deadline is. Get the inspection scheduled. If they identify another hazard, we fix it before opening a sealed space in the middle of the work area." Mia disliked that answer too. It was becoming a pattern. She called the code office from the cottage. The same inspector who issued the notice answered. Mia gave her name, the property address, and the work completed. She listed secured glazing, braced vents, cleared exits, the isolated western section, repaired drainage, and inspected electrical service. "You've done all that since my visit?" he asked. "Yes." "Do you have the electrician's statement?" "Yes." "And photographs of the roof bracing?" "Yes." He offered an inspection date the following Tuesday morning, several days before the deadline. Mia accepted it. Keep the unsafe section locked until then, he said. If the repairs match what you've described, we'll deal with whatever remains on site. The call ended. She wrote Tuesday 9 in the morning on the cottage calendar. Then she sent 2 messages. The first went to Christopher. Inspection is Tuesday. If it passes, we're opening the central bench afterward. Can you come? His answer arrived within minutes. Yes. Do not open it before I arrive. The second message went to Tammy and Dylan together. Inspection is scheduled for Tuesday. I'm not considering sale offers. Please don't come to the property without asking. Tammy called immediately. Mia let it ring while she saved the inspection photographs to a second folder. The phone rang again. She answered. What does that message mean? Tammy asked. It means what it says. You can't tell your family not to visit. I can tell anyone not to enter my property without permission. I brought you food 2 days ago, and I thanked you. Is Noah telling you to do this? No. Tammy went quiet. Blaming Noah had been easier than accepting that Mia's boundaries came from Mia. What happens Tuesday? She asked. The inspector checks the repairs. And then? I decide what happens next. Dylan says the offer has a deadline. Then he should stop waiting for me. You're shutting everyone out. I'm asking you to call first. That isn't how family works. It's how this property works. Mia heard Tammy breathe in, ready to answer. Then Dylan's voice sounded in the background. Ask her what Green wants. Mia gripped the phone. Tammy spoke more carefully. Christopher Green visited you? How did Dylan know that? He heard it from someone at the conservatory. That was possible. Christopher's visit hadn't been secret, and the conservatory worked with growers across the area. He came to see the greenhouse. Why? He bought from Grandpa. What does he want now? You'll have to ask him. Mia, I have to work. She ended the call. Noah stood in the greenhouse doorway with the empty seedling tray. They know Christopher came, she said. He looked toward the road. That didn't take long. Mia checked the gate latch, then moved the new glass crates inside the fence. The restored bay had given her proof that the building could work again. It had also given Dylan something more troublesome than damaged land. It had given him a reason to wonder what she was building before Tuesday. Dylan arrived Sunday afternoon with Tammy in the passenger seat. Mia saw them from the cottage window. Noah was on the roof platform checking the final brace before inspection. He looked down when the truck entered the gate. They asked first. He called. No. He began climbing down. Mia met them outside before either could reach the greenhouse door. I asked you to call. Tammy carried Mia's last storage box from the family house. Dylan had a document folder beneath his arm. We're not staying, Tammy said. She handed over the box. Mia recognized the winter scarf hanging from one corner and the small desk clock Gregory had given her when she started office work. You didn't have to bring this now. I wanted everything settled. Dylan opened the folder. The developer made a final offer. It expires tomorrow at noon. Mia didn't take it. I already gave you my answer. You gave me an answer before you saw this figure. He removed the top page and held it where she could read the amount. The payment would return everything she had spent, cover Noah's credited labor if the agreement ended, and leave enough for several months of rent. It was more than the earlier offer. Where did the increase come from? She asked. I reduced my commission. Tammy looked at him. That detail was new to her. How much? Mia asked. Enough. You still won't say. This isn't about my commission anymore. I gave up part of it, so you have a way to walk out without losing your savings. Noah reached the ground and removed his safety line. He stayed beside the platform. Dylan noticed him. The offer includes payment for his labor, he said. Nobody gets cheated. You read our agreement? No. Mom told me the arrangement. Then you don't know what it requires. I know enough. Mia took the offer and read it. The developer wanted a signed acceptance by noon Monday, followed by a formal transfer after a brief title review. Demolition would begin later, after permits. The terms were ordinary. That made them more difficult to dismiss. She could sign without pretending the building was worthless. The money would replace what she had spent. She could repay Noah. She could rent a clean apartment with a dry ceiling and sleep for more than 4 hours at a time. The inspection might still fail Tuesday. The bolted bench might contain nothing. Christopher might be remembering work Gregory had already lost. Tammy watched Mia read, and hope entered her face. You can come back to the house for a few weeks, she said. Just until you find a good place. Mia lowered the paper. You said the cottage was my home. I was angry. You carried my things outside one box at a time. I'm trying to fix that. Because I might sign. Because this has gone too far. Mia glanced at the last storage box. Tammy opened her handbag and took out the spare key Mia had used for years. It was the key to the new roadhouse. Tammy held it between two fingers. Come home tonight, she said. Get some sleep. We can go through the offer in the morning. For one moment, Mia saw the kitchen as it had been before Gregory died. Her mug in the cupboard, her shoes by the back door, Tammy asking her to reset a password or pick something up on the way home, Dylan arriving without notice and eating whatever was on the stove. It had never been equal, but it had been familiar. Mia had confused being needed with having a place no one could remove her from. Now Tammy was offering the same place back, tied to the same obedience. What happens if I don't sign? Mia asked. Tammy closed her fingers around the key. Then you're choosing this. I already chose it. You chose it because you were hurt. I paid for the roof because I was hurt. You know what I mean. No, I want you to say it. Tammy looked toward the greenhouse. You're choosing a building over your family. Dylan rubbed one hand across his mouth. He wanted Tammy to apply pressure, but even he knew she had said too much. Mia folded the offer once. The building didn't ask me to give it away before telling me what it was worth. That isn't fair, Tammy said. It's exactly what happened. We were trying to keep you from wasting your money. I did waste some. I ordered the wrong size pipe clamps on Friday. Noah looked down to hide a brief smile. Mia continued. I also learned how to check a heating loop. The East Bay held temperature overnight. The roof is stable. Those things happened because I decided to do them. You don't know enough to run a nursery. No, I'm learning. From him. From anyone who knows more than I do. Tammy's eyes moved to Noah. He stepped forward. I'm not asking her to keep the property for me. Dylan held up a hand. Nobody asked you. I have labor in the building and an agreement for the bay. That makes one part of this my business. The offer pays you. Only if Mia chooses to sell. You'd get cash instead of a year and a half broken greenhouse. I can count. The two men looked at each other across the gravel. Noah had debts and deadlines of his own. The cash would help with his move. He also knew he could find another rented unit eventually. What he couldn't replace easily was a sound-growing bay, local access, and the chance to operate in a nursery Gregory had taught him to repair. Still, he turned to Mia. If you want the offer, take it. I'll sign the release required by our agreement. Don't keep this place because of my labor. Mia understood what he was giving her. It wasn't permission. It was the removal of an excuse. Thank you, she said. Dylan pushed the signature page toward her. You can end all of this now. Mia handed the page back. I'll give you my answer before noon. Dylan's jaw tightened. Why wait? Because the deadline belongs to you. She carried the storage box into the cottage. Tammy followed. The room looked different from her first visit. The dishes were clean. A second-hand lamp stood beside the bed. Mia's work clothes hung from hooks Noah had fixed to the wall. The ceiling stain remained, but a sheet of clear plastic now directed drips into the bucket. Tammy set the house key on the potting counter. You can still have this, she said quietly. Mia touched the edge of the storage box. Without signing? Tammy didn't answer. There it was. Mia had spent years waiting for her mother to confirm that care and belonging were the same thing. Tammy had loved her. Mia knew that. Tammy had also made security conditional so often that neither of them noticed the condition until Mia stopped meeting it. Take the key, Mia said. Tammy stared at her. I don't want to wonder what it costs every time I use it. I'm offering you your room. You're offering it until I disagree again. That's not true. It happened 8 days ago. Tammy picked up the key, but her hand remained on the counter. Your grandfather filled your head with ideas about this place. He didn't tell me to keep it. We barely talked about what would happen after he died. Then why are you doing this? Because every time I make one part work, I find out the next part can work too. That isn't a life. It's more of one than waiting for Dylan to tell me what I'm allowed to know. Dylan appeared in the doorway. We're leaving. Tammy put the key back in her handbag. At the threshold, she turned. If you refuse tomorrow, the developer moves on. Dylan can't keep holding the other owners while you decide what this means to you. I understand. And don't expect the same offer later. I understand that too. After they left, Mia carried the storage box to the bed and unpacked it. Under the scarf were several framed photographs, 2 pairs of shoes, an unopened packet of mail, and a small tin containing spare keys. None belonged to the greenhouse. Gregory's tools and nursery books remained at Tammy's house because they had been moved there before the estate distribution. Mia didn't call to ask for them. She returned to the East Bay. Noah was removing the platform rails. "How much would I owe you if I signed?" she asked. He gave her the figure from their agreement. The developer's offer covered it. She would still leave with more money than she had before starting repairs. "No trap?" she asked. "No trap." "Would you take the cash?" "If you sell, yes. And if I don't?" "I take the bay after inspection." Mia nodded. Noah set the last rail on the ground. "You don't have to decide in front of me." "I'm not." That evening, Mia went to her restaurant shift. She carried plates, refilled water glasses, and smiled when customers apologized for staying late. During her break, she opened the offer on her phone and read it again. At 11, she drove past the family house on her way back. Lights glowed in the kitchen. Dylan's truck stood in the drive. Tammy had left the front curtains open. Mia slowed, but didn't turn in. At the cottage, the bulb above the door lit the gravel. Wind moved across the greenhouse roof without rattling the repaired panes. She made tea and sat at the potting counter. The offer waited beside the recorded distribution. One would give her money and remove the risk. The other gave her a damaged property, its fixed structures, and whatever remained inside them. At midnight, Mia wrote a short email to Dylan. She didn't send it. She slept badly and woke before the alarm. Monday morning passed in ordinary tasks. Mia finished her reports early. She photographed every repair again. Noah tested the exit latches and checked the temporary partition. At 11:45, Dylan texted, "Need the sign page now." Mia opened the email she had written. "I'm declining the offer. Do not represent my parcel as available. The inspection remains scheduled for tomorrow." She read it once and pressed send. At noon, Dylan replied, "Then you're on your own." Mia saved the message with the property records. The developer's offer expired. The money disappeared without ever reaching her, and the room at Tammy's house disappeared with it. She felt both losses even though neither had truly been hers that morning. At 12:15, she called Christopher. "The inspection is still tomorrow," she said. "I turned down the sale. Are you certain?" "No." He waited. "I'll arrive before 9. Mia ended the call and carried a clean plastic sheet into the greenhouse. She spread it across the metal table beside the central bench. Then she placed gloves, labels, her phone, and Christopher's photographs in a tray. Noah watched from the aisle. "You're preparing early. I know what it costs now." She checked the 4 bolts without turning them. Tomorrow, if the greenhouse passed, she would open the one thing Gregory had made impossible to move. At 8:45 the next morning, Christopher's sedan pulled through the gate. Noah had already checked the temporary partition twice. Mia stood beside the cottage with the inspection folder tucked under one arm. She wore clean jeans and Gregory's green sweatshirt, though she had washed it in the sink the night before. Christopher carried a small insulated case. "What's that?" Mia asked. "Nothing useful unless you find living material." "You brought it anyway." "I prefer to arrive prepared." The inspector came at 9 in a county vehicle. He took the folder from Mia, but didn't begin with it. "I want to see the work first." He checked the service entrance, the east exit, and every section of replaced glazing. Noah showed him the new braces from the floor, then from the exterior platform. The inspector tested the temporary partition and confirmed that its access gate remained locked. He spent the most time near the western bay. "This section still needs permanent repair," he said. "I know," Mia replied. "When?" "When I can pay for it." He looked at her, then at Noah. "The notice requires stabilization, not complete restoration. I'm checking whether the damaged section can hurt anyone using the open section." He pressed against one of the rigid partition panels. It didn't move. Noah pointed to the independent electrical shutoff and the marked boundary where the heating line had been isolated. The inspector photographed both. Mia followed him to the utility room. He read the electrician's statement and checked the panel label. Then he looked at the boiler. "This wasn't part of my notice." "We serviced it anyway," Mia said. "Any leaks?" "No. Keep the service record." He returned to the center aisle and stopped beside the bolted bench. "What's under this?" "We don't know yet," Mia said. The inspector crouched to examine the masonry. "Any reason to believe it's unsafe?" "No movement," Noah said. The wood is sound, the base is stable. You planning to remove it? The top, Mia said. Not the masonry. After I leave, I hope. Yes. He stood and checked the path around it. It isn't blocking an exit. If you uncover wiring, fuel, mold, or structural damage, stop and deal with that before using the space. Mia nodded. The inspector wrote on his tablet while they waited. Authority did not make the greenhouse sound, and it had not paid for the glass. It only measured what Mia and Noah had done against the conditions that had threatened access. The inspector handed Mia a printed notice from the small machine in his vehicle. The immediate hazards are corrected or secured. The property passes this inspection. Mia read the sentence once. The orange notice no longer controlled the door. The western bay remained closed, but the cottage and eastern section could be used. Do I need to post this? She asked. Keep it with the property records. Remove the old notice if you want. He left without congratulating her. Mia walked to the service door and pulled the orange paper from beneath its clear cover. The corners had curled from weather. She carried it into the cottage and laid the passing notice over it. Noah stood behind her. You can smile, he said. I am. That looks painful. She turned, and he was smiling enough for both of them. Christopher waited in the greenhouse. He had placed his insulated case on the clean table and set out unopened gloves, clear bags, and a small digital thermometer. Mia joined him. We passed. I heard. You don't sound surprised. I saw the roof. She put the passing notice beside the preparation tray. Before we open anything, I want to be sure about one part of the distribution. Christopher took off his glasses. Which part? It says the Orchid house, cottage, fixtures, and contents were distributed to me. The bench is fixed. If something is inside it, I need to know whether opening it creates an estate problem. I can't give you legal advice. I know. Noah leaned against the metal table. You had the document recorded, yes. Then verify the copy before we touch the bolts. Mia called the records office that had handled the distribution. The clerk asked for the file number. Mia read it from the first page. There was a pause while the clerk opened the record. I have the same document here, she said. Can you confirm the property description includes the structures and their contents? I can read the recorded language to you. I can't interpret a dispute. That's fine. The clerk read the line exactly as it appeared on Mia's copy. The White Orchid house, attached potting cottage, all permanent fixtures, equipment, and contents located on the distributed parcel passed to Mia. No separate item list was attached. No nursery contents had been excluded in the recorded distribution. Can I obtain a certified copy today? Mia asked. Yes. You can collect it at the counter. Mia thanked her and ended the call. Christopher put his glasses back on. That tells you what was recorded, he said. It doesn't prevent someone from arguing later. Would you argue? No. Noah? No. Mia looked at the central bench. Tammy and Dylan might. If the base contained only old insulation or empty storage, no one would care. If it held anything useful, the same relatives who called the property a burden could decide the useful part belonged elsewhere. Mia picked up her car keys. I'm getting the certified copy. We can wait, Noah said. Christopher closed the insulated case. We should. The records office was in a plain brick building less than 15 minutes away. Mia paid the small certification fee with money from her restaurant tips. At the counter, she compared the certified pages with her own. The property description matched. The clause covering fixtures, equipment, and contents matched. A raised seal marked the final page. She placed the document in a rigid folder. On her way back, she pulled into a parking lot and called the developer's office using the number printed on the expired offer. A receptionist transferred her to the person handling the land assembly. Mia gave her name and parcel address. I'm calling to make one thing clear, she said. My property is not available. Dylan Day does not have permission to offer it for sale or include it in an assembly. The person on the line sounded surprised. We understood there was a family discussion underway. The discussion is over. Would you consider a revised amount? No. May I ask whether another buyer is involved? No buyer is involved. She could have told them about Dylan's debt. She could have said he had promised land he didn't own. She could have described how Tammy put her belongings outside after she refused to sign. Any of it might have embarrassed him enough to remove him from the whole deal. Instead, Mia kept the call narrow. I'm only speaking for my parcel, she said. Please direct any questions about it to me. The person confirmed that her property would be marked unavailable unless she contacted them herself. Mia ended the call. A minute later, Dylan called. She let it ring once, then answered. "You went around me," he said. "I contacted the person you kept saying was waiting on me. You made it sound like I lied. I told them my parcel isn't available. They're questioning the whole assembly now. I didn't discuss the other parcels. You didn't have to. You made me look unreliable. You offered them my land before I agreed. I said it was likely. It wasn't." He went quiet. Mia could hear road noise behind him. He was driving, speaking through the truck system. "What did the inspection say?" he asked. "It passed." Another silence. That answer removed the outcome he had expected. He could no longer wait for the code deadline to defeat her. "So now what?" he asked. "I'm opening the fixed bench." "Why?" "Because Grandpa built the base differently, and I want to know what's inside." "Is that why Green came?" He knew Grandpa's nursery work. "What did he tell you?" "That Grandpa had projects he never finished." Dylan's voice hardened. "If there's a state property in there, you don't get to keep it just because you found it. The recorded distribution includes the contents. You've been planning this. I found the bench after I moved in. You asked me about it like you already knew. I asked because I wanted to know whether you did. And now you called the developer before telling us the inspection passed. I'm telling you now." Dylan laughed once without humor. "When are you opening it?" Mia could have refused to answer. She could have opened it with only Noah and Christopher, photographed the contents, and told the family afterward. That would have been easier. It would also let Dylan say she had removed something, altered something, or built a story around whatever they found. Tammy would believe at least part of that, because exclusion made suspicion comfortable. "In an hour," Mia said. "You and Mom can be there if you want. You can watch from the aisle. Nobody touches anything until we know what it is. You expect me to drop everything? No, I'm giving you the choice. Mia, wait until tomorrow." "Why?" "So we can deal with this properly. Bring your copy of the distribution. I'm bringing mine." He swore under his breath. "Is Mom with you?" Mia asked. "No, call her. You call her. I'm not asking permission. I'm offering her a witness." She ended the call before he could turn that difference into another argument. Tammy didn't answer when Mia called. Mia left a message with the time, the reason, and the rule that no one would remove anything. Then she drove back to the property. Christopher and Noah were where she had left them. Mia placed the certified distribution inside a clear sleeve and set it beneath the passing inspection notice. "The record matches," she said. Christopher nodded toward the insulated case. "Then we prepare." They washed their hands. Noah cleaned the bolt heads and set out the correct sockets. Christopher checked the temperature in the greenhouse and wrote it down. Mia photographed the bench from every side. She photographed the sealed mortar, the capped pipe, the metal plates, and the condition of the wood before removal. At the cottage, she placed the declined sale offers and Dylan's messages in the property folder. She did not add his debt or commission. Those weren't proof of ownership, and they weren't hers to use as punishment. When she returned, Noah was fitting the socket over the first bolt without turning it. Christopher stood beside the clean table. His face had become very still. "You know more than you told me," Mia said. "I know your grandfather believed some work should remain undisturbed until the right person chose to continue it. Did he say I was the right person?" "He didn't use those words." "What words did he use?" Christopher looked toward the gate. A truck was coming down New Road. "I'll answer after we see what he left," he said. Dylan entered first, carrying another release folder. Tammy's car followed him through the gate. Mia put one hand on the certified distribution and the other on the untouched first bolt. Whatever came out of the masonry would become part of the family's future the moment she chose to lift the bench in front of them. Dylan reached the greenhouse before Tammy had closed her car door. He put the release folder on the clean metal table, directly beside Christopher's insulated case. "This is the last version," he said. "The developer will still honor the amount if you sign today. The offer expired yesterday. I got it extended. Mia didn't open the folder. I declined it. You declined by email. They'll accept a signature." Tammy entered more slowly. She looked at the passing inspection notice, then at the tools arranged around the central bench. "You actually called us here to watch you take apart a table?" "I called, so nobody could say later that I hid what we found." "What makes you think there's anything to find?" Dylan asked. "The base is insulated and ventilated. It's old greenhouse equipment. Then we'll find old greenhouse equipment." Dylan tapped the release folder. "Or you could stop before you destroy the only offer that gets your money back. The property passed inspection. That doesn't make it valuable." Christopher spoke from the other side of the table. It makes it usable. Dylan turned to him. And what exactly do you want? To observe. You drove here twice to observe a damaged greenhouse. I knew Gregory for many years. So did we. Christopher didn't argue. Then you understand why Mia invited witnesses. Dylan looked around the east bay. New glass shone above him. The boiler moved warm water through the pipes. The clean aisle and organized tools weakened every claim he'd made about Mia's ability to keep the property. He needed the bench to be empty. You've built a whole story around this, he said to Mia. What are you going to tell people? Kicked out at 23, she took Grandpa's ruined orchid house. One bench was bolted down. Is that supposed to make every decision you've made sensible? Tammy flinched at the first part. Dylan continued before she could stop him. Grandpa built odd things. He saved broken equipment. He kept bags of old fertilizer for years. Whatever's under there won't turn you into a nursery owner. I already own the nursery, Mia said. You own a building, and everything distributed with it. Dylan opened the folder to the signature page. Sign this before you embarrass yourself further. That was the version he had chosen. The greenhouse was still a burden. Mia was still acting from hurt. Anything Gregory left inside the fixed bench would be rubbish. And the only adult decision was the one Dylan had already made for her. Mia slid the folder away. No. He looked at Tammy. Tell her. Tammy stared at the central bench. She's not signing, she said. Dylan's head turned sharply. You brought me here to help her understand. I came to see what Dad built. He was your grandfather, Mia said to Dylan, keeping the kinship clear even in the tension. He was her father. Dylan looked at the socket in Noah's hand. Fine. Open it? Noah fitted the socket over the first bolt. Mia placed her phone on a small stand and started recording. The certified distribution remained visible beneath its clear sleeve. Noah loosened the first bolt. It resisted, then turned with a low metal squeal. The second came free more easily. The third had corrosion around the plate, and Mia held the frame steady while Noah worked it loose. At the fourth, Tammy stepped closer. Wait! Everyone stopped. Tammy looked at Mia. If there are personal things inside, don't put them on the internet. I'm recording the condition, not publishing it. Tammy nodded once. Noah removed the final bolt. The hardwood top still didn't move. He examined the seams and found two recessed latches beneath the outer frame. They had been hidden by narrow wooden plugs. Mia used a small screwdriver to lift the plugs. Noah released both latches. A dry breath of air moved through the slats. Christopher put on gloves. Lift slowly, he said. Noah took one end, Mia took the other. Together, they raised the bench top. The hardwood frame hinged upward from the back, revealing a metal lid set flush inside the masonry base. Insulation lined its edges. A narrow cable and ventilation tube entered through the side. The lid had no lock. Mia looked at Christopher. Open it, he said quietly. She pulled the metal handle. The seal released with a soft hiss. Inside the masonry plinth sat 3 insulated storage cases. They were surrounded by sealed packs that had once held a controlled temperature. A digital monitor on the inner wall was dark, but its recorded strip remained beneath a clear cover. A thick green ledger lay across the top case inside a waterproof sleeve. No one spoke. Mia lifted the ledger first. Gregory White was written on the cover. Beneath his name were the registered codes Christopher had shown her. Christopher closed his eyes for a moment. You recognize it? Mia said. Yes. She opened the ledger. The early pages contained dates, parent plants, temperature ranges, and short notes in Gregory's tight handwriting. Later pages tracked selections through repeated propagation. The final entries matched the codes in Christopher's photographs. A loose card had been tucked inside the front cover. Mia read it aloud. Mia, if you've opened this, the house is yours, and you chose to work before asking what the work would give you. Call Christopher. Keep the flasks cool. The ledger tells you what they need. Tammy sat down on the nearest movable bench. Dylan reached for the ledger. Mia moved it out of reach. Don't. I want to see it. You can see it from there. This concerns the estate. It concerns the contents of my property. Noah positioned himself beside the open cavity without touching Dylan. Christopher opened the first insulated case. Rows of glass tissue culture flasks rested inside fitted holders. Each was sealed and labeled. Small green shoots remained visible in clear growing medium. Some had browned at the edges. Others still held firm leaves and pale roots. Christopher checked the labels against the ledger. "This is the final line," he said. "You can tell by looking?" Mia asked. "I can tell what Gregory labeled it. Identity requires testing. Is it alive? Some of it appears alive. Viability also needs testing." Dylan pointed at the open cases. "If this has value, it belongs to the whole estate." Mia slid the certified distribution toward him. "The greenhouse and all fixtures, equipment, and contents were distributed to me. That means pots and tools. It doesn't mean hidden business assets. It doesn't exclude them. You didn't know these existed when you accepted the property. Neither did you." Tammy looked at Christopher. "Did you know?" Christopher removed his gloves. "I knew Gregory preserved stock before he died." Mia stared at him. "You saw him?" "I saw him seal the storage cases. He asked me not to interfere with what happened next." "You could have told us during probate," Dylan said. "No. The stock was on Gregory's property. He told me the person who accepted the Orchid house would decide whether to continue the line. That isn't a will." "No," Christopher said. "The recorded distribution decides ownership. I'm telling you why he placed the stock here." Tammy's face changed as she understood what Gregory had done. He hadn't left a fortune inside a table. He had left demanding living work in the one property the family had mocked. Anyone who demolished the greenhouse would likely destroy the conditions needed to find and use it. Dylan pulled out his phone. "I'm calling someone." "Call whoever you need," Mia said. "Nobody removes anything. You don't get to make that rule. I own the building." Noah closed the insulated case. "And until we know the stock's condition, every minute of warm air matters." Christopher replaced the ledger in its sleeve. "I know an independent geneticist who can collect samples and test both viability and identity." "How long?" Mia asked. "Several days if she can take the work. Call her." Dylan picked up the release folder. "This property isn't being transferred until this is resolved." "It wasn't being transferred before," Mia said. Tammy stood. "Dylan, stop." He looked at her as though she had changed sides. Tammy hadn't, not yet. She had simply seen the thing she called worthless, open beneath Mia's hands, and certainty was no longer available to her. Dawn White arrived the next afternoon. She was 44 and carried 2 locked sample cases. She spoke little while working. She photographed every seal, compared the flask labels to Gregory's ledger, and selected small samples from 3 cultures using sterile tools inside a portable clean enclosure. Mia watched from the other side of the table. "Can you save the opened flasks?" she asked. "If they're clean, yes. I'll reseal them before I leave." Dawn checked the temperature record inside the cavity. "The insulation did its job," she said. "The material warmed after the power stopped, but slowly." "Does that mean it's alive?" "It means testing is worth doing." She resealed the flasks, signed the sample record, and left with the cases. She performed no other role. For 6 days, Mia checked the remaining stock morning and night. Noah adjusted the East Bay temperature to match Gregory's ledger. Christopher arranged temporary sterile storage equipment, but made no offer. Tammy called twice. Mia answered once. "Dylan thinks you're hiding the results," Tammy said. "There are no results yet. If it belongs to all 3 of you, you need to discuss it. If testing says it's dead, will Dylan pay 1/3 of the repairs?" Tammy didn't answer. On the 6th afternoon, Dawn sent her report to Mia, Christopher, Tammy, and Dylan at the same time. Mia opened it at the potting counter. The sampled cultures were viable and free of the contaminants tested. Their genetic markers matched Gregory's registered parentage records and confirmed the identity of his final breeding line. Mia read the conclusion again. Noah stood beside her. "It's real? It's alive." Christopher arrived an hour later with a document folder of his own. Unlike Dylan, he began by explaining every page. The Delaware Botanical Conservatory offered Mia a 3-year supply agreement worth $180,000 in total. Payment would come in stages as the nursery produced healthy plants that met the recorded standard. The agreement required verified stock, clean propagation, delivery schedules, and continued access for quality checks. It did not make her wealthy that afternoon. It gave the greenhouse work for 3 years. Christopher placed a pen beside the agreement. "You don't have to sign today." Dylan's truck appeared beyond the cedar gate before Mia could answer. Tammy followed in her car. "They received Dawn's report," Christopher said. Mia closed the supply agreement and set it beside the certified distribution, Gregory's ledger, and the passing inspection notice. This time, when her family entered the lit East Bay, the ruined greenhouse was no longer waiting for them to decide whether it mattered. Dylan walked straight to the open bench. The insulated cases remained inside the masonry base. Mia had left the ledger in its waterproof sleeve and kept a written temperature record beside it. Nothing had been removed except Dawn's documented samples. Tammy stopped near the clean table. "What did she find?" she asked. Mia handed her a copy of the report. Dylan didn't take one. "I read it. Then you know the cultures match Grandpa's records. I know a geneticist says they match. That's what the test was for." He looked at Christopher's folder. "And that's the offer?" "Yes," Christopher said. "For how much?" Christopher looked to Mia. She answered, $180,000 over 3 years. Tammy sat down. Dylan gave a short laugh. "For plants in a box, for plants produced from the stock," Christopher said. "The payments depend on successful propagation and delivery. So, the stock has commercial value. It has potential commercial value. Mia still has to produce healthy plants." Dylan turned to his mother. "That's an estate asset." Tammy held Dawn's report in both hands. It was inside the greenhouse. "That doesn't settle it." Mia placed the certified distribution on the table. "This does." Dylan opened his own folder and pulled out a plain copy of the same pages. "I spoke to the attorney who handled probate," he said. "The distribution wasn't based on anyone knowing this existed. The distribution doesn't say it covers only things you knew about. It says contents. That means the ordinary contents of the building." Noah stood near the open cavity. "These were ordinary enough for Gregory to store in the building." "This is not your conversation," Dylan said. "No, but the condition of the stock is. Keep the lid open much longer, and we'll have to adjust the room temperature." Mia closed the insulated cases and lowered the metal lid without fastening the bench top. "Now it's our conversation," she said. She placed Gregory's ledger beside Dawn's report. "The stock was sealed here before Grandpa died. Christopher saw him do it. The dated ledger identifies it. Dawn's report confirms it. Those things prove what the contents are. The distribution says who received them." Dylan looked at Christopher. "You expect us to accept your word?" "No," Christopher said. "My account supports the dates in the ledger. It does not transfer ownership." "What exactly did my grandfather tell you?" Christopher folded his hands. "He asked me to witness him sealing the cases. He said he had placed the line where it could remain stable until the Orchid house had a keeper. That could mean all of us. He knew who was receiving the property?" "No. He sealed the stock before the final distribution." Dylan pointed at Mia. "Then he couldn't have intended her specifically." Christopher looked at the card Gregory had left in the ledger. He expected the person willing to accept and work on the greenhouse to find it. He didn't need to know that person's name when he sealed the cases. Tammy closed her eyes. She knew Gregory had expected the rest of them to reject the property. That was the part Dylan kept circling without saying. Her father had understood their choices before they made them. "This was a test," Dylan said. "No," Mia replied. "A test has rules people know about. This was work he wanted protected." "And you think that makes you special?" "No, it makes me responsible for it." He picked up the certified distribution. His finger moved down the recorded language. Orchid house, attached cottage, permanent fixtures, equipment, contents. Tammy held out her hand. "Let me see." Dylan gave her the page. She read it slowly. "If we claim the stock," she asked, "what happens to the greenhouse?" Dylan looked at her. "That's separate. How do you grow the plants without the greenhouse?" "They can be moved," Christopher answered. "Some can. Moving all the remaining flasks before establishing clean storage would add risk. Producing from them requires a suitable nursery. So, we'd take the part with value," Tammy said, "and leave Mia with the building and the repair bills." Dylan's face hardened. "We divide the value fairly." Tammy put the document down. "Did you offer to divide the demolition cost fairly?" "That isn't the same." "No," she said, "it isn't." The room went quiet except for the circulation pump. Tammy looked at Mia. "I'm withdrawing any claim I have to the stock." Dylan stared at her. "You can't withdraw mine." "I didn't say I could." Tammy's decision didn't restore anything between her and Mia. It did remove the support Dylan expected from her. He gathered his papers. "I'm not agreeing that she owns the breeding line. The conservatory agreement purchases plants produced from the living stock. Christopher said. It does not require you to agree. And if I challenge the distribution, you may seek your own advice, Christopher replied. The conservatory will not participate in a family dispute. Mia kept her voice level. You can challenge it if you believe you have a real claim. I won't give you stock, money, or part of the contract to keep you quiet. You're willing to drag this through court? No. Are you? Dylan looked at the evidence on the table. He had no separate document excluding the stock. He had no ownership in the property. He had refused the greenhouse when it was a burden and tried to sell it through Mia when it became useful to his deal. A challenge would cost money he didn't have. It would also force him to explain his commission and the promises he'd made to the developer. He put his copy of the release on the table. The sale is dead anyway, he said. It was dead when I declined it. You made sure of that? Yes. He slid the release into the folder. I'm done asking? Mia nodded. Good. He waited for her to soften it. She didn't. Dylan left without apologizing. His debt remained. His lost commission remained. Mia didn't feel pleased about either one. She only felt the space where his pressure had been. Tammy stayed near the table. I need to get something from the house, she said. What? Your grandfather's tools. Mia's shoulders tightened. They were in the garage before probate, Tammy continued. The small tools from the nursery, his grafting knives, meters, and hand sprayers. I moved them after he went into the hospital. They were greenhouse equipment. I know. Why didn't you bring them before? Tammy looked toward the gate where Dylan had left. Because I didn't want this place to become harder for you to leave. The admission was more useful than an excuse. Tammy picked up her handbag. I'll bring them tomorrow. Call before you come. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. I will. After Tammy left, Christopher opened the supply agreement again. Mia read every page. The first payment would cover verified setup and propagation once the work area met the conservatory's standard. Later payments depended on plant quantities and health. If the nursery failed to deliver, the unpaid portion stayed unpaid. If contamination damaged the line, Mia had to notify the conservatory immediately. This won't refill your savings tomorrow, Christopher said. I understand. You'll need training. I understand that too. The contract includes technical visits, but not free labor. Noah has a bay agreement. He doesn't work for me for free either. Noah leaned against the bench frame. I'm glad someone remembers. Mia reached the signature line, then stopped. Why didn't Gregory tell me? Christopher looked toward the closed cavity. He was afraid you would accept the greenhouse for him, instead of deciding whether you wanted it. He still left the card with my name. He hoped. That sounds like a test. It was unfair in some ways, Christopher said. He was running out of time, and sick people don't always make clean decisions. I think he wanted the work to survive. I also think he trusted you to stop, if it wasn't your life. Mia appreciated that he didn't turn Gregory into a man who had planned every moment perfectly. I'm not signing because he hoped, she said. Good. I'm signing because the East Bay works, the stock is alive, and I want to learn whether I can do this. Christopher gave her the pen. She signed the 3-year agreement. He signed for the conservatory and handed her a copy. Noah lowered the bench top back into place without replacing the bolts. The cavity would need daily access now. He fitted a new seal and installed 2 lockable latches using Mia's key. The following morning, Tammy called at 8. I'm at the gate, she said. Mia looked through the cottage window. Tammy's car was outside the fence, not inside it. Mia opened the gate. Tammy had filled the back of her car with toolboxes, plant books, 2 moisture meters, Gregory's old magnifying lamp, and a compact sterilizer from the nursery workroom. She had also brought the radio that used to sit near his sink. They carried everything into the East Bay. Tammy placed the last toolbox on the metal table. I'm sorry, she said. Mia didn't answer immediately. I shouldn't have kept these, Tammy continued, and I shouldn't have made coming home depend on your signature. No, you shouldn't have. Tammy's eyes filled, but Mia didn't rescue her from the silence. What happens now? Tammy asked. You call before visiting. You don't speak for me to Dylan or anyone else. You don't make offers involving this property. I can do that. If you stop, you don't come in. Tammy nodded. And the house? She asked. What about it? Your room is still there. I'm not moving back. Tammy looked down at Gregory's radio. I thought you might say that. Mia touched the handle of the nearest toolbox. I'm not saying I never want to see you. All right, but this isn't fixed because you returned the tools, I know. For once, Tammy didn't ask how long forgiveness would take. She left the gate keyless and waited for Mia to decide whether to open it next time. That afternoon, Noah brought the first load of his nursery equipment from the rented workshop. Mia unlocked the east bay for him. He set down a rack of clean trays. 1 year after inspection, he said. 1 year. Separate stock and tools. And if this conservatory work takes over the whole place, then we discuss space before moving anything. He held out his hand. Mia shook it. Noah carried in the tray of common seedlings that had tested the heat. This time, he placed them on the shelf as working nursery stock. Mia set Gregory's radio beside the sink. It crackled when she turned the dial, then settled on a local weather report. The western bay still needed permanent glass. The cottage roof still leaked. Mia's savings remained almost gone. Dylan had not called again. She opened Gregory's first plant book beneath the magnifying lamp, while Noah watered his seedlings nearby. On the clean table between them sat the conservatory schedule, with the first propagation check due in 3 weeks. Mia marked the due date on the cottage calendar and counted backward. The work began with the surviving flasks. Christopher arranged for 2 days of technical training at the conservatory. Mia learned how to examine culture medium for cloudiness, how to move young plants without damaging their roots, and how quickly a clean table could become unclean through one careless hand. She came back with written instructions and practiced using empty jars. Noah watched her wipe the same pair of tweezers 3 times. You're going to remove the metal if you keep doing that. I touched the handle, with a gloved hand that touched the drawer. He held up both palms. I withdraw my criticism. You don't. No, but I'm moving it outside the clean area. At the first propagation check, Christopher inspected the east bay, the water records, and every temperature chart. He found one missing evening entry. I was at the restaurant, Mia said. Then someone else needs to record it. Noah looked up from his own bench. I was here. Christopher handed him the clipboard. The omission didn't fail the check. It did change their routine. Mia took mornings, Noah recorded late afternoons. A small wireless monitor handled the hours when neither was present, but they still checked it against a separate thermometer each day. The first group of cultures moved from storage into controlled light. Some failed within the week. Their leaves yellowed, and 2 flasks developed contamination despite careful handling. Mia wanted to keep them longer. Christopher shook his head. Protect the healthy stock. She sealed the failed flasks for disposal and entered each loss in Gregory's ledger beside her own initials. The remaining cultures responded. New roots pressed against the glass. Fresh green leaves opened above the growing medium. The conservatory approved the first setup payment. Mia didn't use it to replace her savings. She paid for permanent glazing on the western bay, materials for the cottage roof, and a reserve for heat through winter. The payment covered progress, and progress consumed it. Noah helped her remove the temporary partition once the western roof passed its own safety check. They carried the panels outside together. Without them, the greenhouse became one long room again. The west side still held empty benches and patched brick, but no part of it was closed. Noah rolled a rack toward the center. Where do you want this? Your bay. I need more light in winter. We agreed on the east bay. I'm still in the east bay. The wheels are touching the center aisle. He looked down. One wheel had crossed the white line Mia painted after their agreement. That paint is aggressive, he said. The paint isn't moving your rack. He pushed it back. The boundary became important 2 weeks later, when Noah found mites on a tray he had brought from his old workshop. The infestation was small. He could have treated the tray in place and hoped nothing spread. Instead, he closed his bay, called Mia at work, and carried every plant from that shipment to a rented quarantine cabinet. He lost 9 seedlings. Gregory's cultures remained clean. That evening, Mia found Noah washing the empty rack outside in cold water. You followed the agreement, she said. That's usually why people write them. You could have hidden it. I need the bay next year, too. His answer was practical, but trust often looked practical when someone was doing it properly. Tammy called on a Thursday morning. I made chicken and rice, she said. Mia looked at the day's work list. She was transferring young plants and couldn't stop halfway. Not today. I can leave it at the gate. I won't get to it for hours. Tammy was quiet. All right, she said. Another day. She didn't come anyway. She didn't leave the dish as proof that her need to give mattered more than Mia's answer. The following Sunday, she called again. Can I visit at 2? Yes. Should I bring anything? Wear clothes you can get wet. Tammy arrived at 2 and waited outside until Mia opened the gate. Mia gave her a tub of used pots, a brush, and instructions for the disinfecting solution. Tammy began washing without reorganizing the shelves or offering a better system. After an hour, she asked, "Do you ever sit down? At the office? That doesn't count." Noah says the same thing. Tammy rinsed another pot. "I was wrong about him. You were wrong about several things." "I know." Mia continued labeling trays. She didn't say it was all right. Before leaving, Tammy asked whether Mia wanted dinner at the family house the next weekend. "Will Dylan be there? I invited him. Then not this time." Tammy set the cleaned pot on the drying rack. "All right." She didn't ask Mia to be the easier person. That was the first dinner invitation Mia declined without spending the evening defending her reason. Dylan stayed away for almost 3 months. Then he sent an email. The neighboring developer needed a surveyor to confirm 2 boundary points behind the western fence. Dylan asked for access on a specific morning and promised that no one would enter the greenhouse. Mia read the message twice. She replied with a 2-hour window and required Noah to be present. The surveyor could use the exterior path only. Dylan arrived with the surveyor at the scheduled time. He waited at the gate. Mia opened it. "Thank you," he said. She nodded toward the marked path. "Stay outside the white posts." They walked the boundary without touching the greenhouse. Dylan didn't mention the lost commission, the stock, or the conservatory agreement. When the survey was complete, he stopped beside his truck. "How's the line doing? The cultures are growing. Is the contract paying? When I meet the stages." He looked as if he wanted to ask how much she had received. He didn't. "Mom says the cottage roof is fixed, almost." He nodded. There was no apology. There was also no release folder. "Take care, Mia. You too." She locked the gate after him. Limited contact remained exactly that. Dylan sent a message on Gregory's birthday. Mia answered with one photograph of the repaired greenhouse. Neither pretended the old closeness had returned, because it hadn't been as close as Mia once believed. Winter tested the building harder than any conversation had. A cold wind came across the marsh and held for 3 nights. The boiler ran almost continuously. One circulation pump began making a rough sound shortly after midnight. Mia heard it from the cottage. She pulled on boots and called Noah. He answered half asleep. "Shut the east branch and switch to the backup pump," he said. "Which valve?" "The blue handle beside the treatment unit." There are 2 blue handles, the one Gregory labeled Margaret. Mia found a faded M on the pipe and laughed despite the cold. She closed the valve, switched the pump, and watched the pressure gauge settle. Noah arrived 20 minutes later with a replacement bearing. The temperature in the culture area fell less than 1 degree. By morning, the system was quiet again. Mia added backup pump testing to the weekly list. The cottage took longer. She and Noah removed the damaged ceiling after the roof stopped leaking. Tammy came on scheduled Sundays to scrape old paint and clean salvage boards. Christopher brought a sturdy desk the conservatory no longer needed. Mia bought a real mattress after the second contract payment and carried the old bed frame outside. She kept the bucket. It became a container for clean bark near the potting table. By spring, the cottage had dry walls, a working shower, shelves for Mia's books, and a kitchen table facing the glass house. Her office laptop no longer sat on a steering wheel near the road. A wired connection reached the cottage, and she completed reports before walking next door to the nursery. She left the restaurant after the nursery met its second delivery stage. The office job remained. So did the careful budget. The first young plants left their flasks that summer. Mia arranged them in shallow community trays beneath filtered light. Gregory's ledger gave ranges, not guarantees. She adjusted water by watching roots and changed airflow when the leaves held too much moisture. Christopher checked each tray before approving the next stage. "You've lost fewer than expected," he said. "I still lost some. You'll always lose some. I don't have to like it." "No, you have to record it." The first delivery to the conservatory happened months later. Mia packed the plants herself. Noah checked the van temperature. Christopher signed for every tray at the greenhouse instead of asking her to bring them to his office. The payment covered operating costs, new propagation lights, and a modest amount toward the savings Mia had emptied at the beginning. It did not erase the year of work behind it. After the van left, Mia and Noah stood in the open space where the trays had been. "We need another rack," Noah said. "We need to clean the floor. We can need two things. Clean first." He went for the mop. The White Orchid house began welcoming growers by appointment. Mia kept visits small. Adults learning home propagation came on Saturday mornings. Local nursery owners stopped for healthy young stock. Christopher held one conservatory training session in the West Bay. Beneath the roof, everyone once expected to fall. Tammy attended the opening day only after asking. She brought no food and made no speech. She stood beside the cottage door and handed visitors clean pots when Mia needed them. Dylan arrived near the end. He stayed outside until Mia saw him. "I called Mom," he said. "She said it was all right. She can't give permission." His face tightened, then relaxed. "May I come in?" Mia opened the gate wider. He walked through the nursery without offering advice. Before leaving, he placed Gregory's old pocket knife on the potting counter. "I found it in the truck," he said. "It should be here." Mia picked it up. "Thank you." That was all either of them could manage honestly. The first buds from Gregory's restored line appeared in the second winter. Mia found them during the morning check, small and firm beneath the leaves. She called Christopher before Tammy. Then she called Tammy and told her she could visit Sunday at 2. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. On Sunday, Tammy arrived at 2 and waited at the gate. Mia let her in. They stood together beside the budding plants. Tammy kept her hands behind her back and didn't touch them. "Dad would have stared at these all day," she said. "He would have complained about the spacing first." Tammy smiled. That too. At sunset, she left without asking Mia to come home. Mia washed the last tools and returned Gregory's pocket knife to its drawer. Noah turned off the West Bay work lights, leaving the propagation lamps glowing above the young stock. Mia opened the cottage door to let in the mild evening air. The radio played softly near the sink. Warm light passed through the clean panes and reached the gravel path outside. At dusk, Mia stood inside the lit glass house, with Gregory's first restored orchids blooming beside the open door to her cottage.